This episode of the Giant Bombcast is brought to you in part by Saban's Power Rangers on Blu-ray and digital HD. The small town of Angel Grove, an ancient alien threat has returned to destroy everything in its path, and now 5 ordinary teenagers, chosen by destiny and gifted with unique superpowers, must team up to become something extraordinary and save the planet before it's too late. Saban's Power Rangers, rated PG-13, now available on iTunes.
Hey, it is Tuesday, June the 20th. It's the 20th, right?
I'll take it.
It's June, right?
It's close
June.
enough.
It's 2017, right?
Yes.
All those parts are correct.
Okay. We're back in the studio for the Giant Bombcast. E3 is over. The usual assortment of knuckleheads are here. Jeff.
Hello.
Jason.
Oh, hi.
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 Ben Pack.
Hello.
What's going on?
Only 51 more weeks till E3
Yay!
2018.
Alex Navarro, how do you feel about that?
I try not to think about it.
Okay.
I think I'm going to get Alex a new mic.
Yeah?
Keep
Yeah.
rolling. Keep rolling.
Wait. Okay, Alex, don't talk anymore. Good. Good stuff.
Wrap it up.
Special guest, Gary Whitta in the house.
Hello.
How you doing, man?
I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, totally.
This
Been
is a
trying
lot-
for a while.
I know. You and I started talking about me coming on like way back
It's
when.
like in the late 70s, I think.
We're just so damn.
Like you were still running a magazine back then.
Yeah, maybe. It's been it's been hard for me to find the time to get away and
Yes.
come. But I miss this. I used to do the Tested podcast all the time.
Totally.
And then I got busy and I kind of fell out of the habit of doing it. But I enjoy it.
You picked the perfect moment. This is just the lull has settled in.
There's a lot to talk about, but
E3
also
aftermath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there? So obviously you guys cover it, somewhat exhaustively. I watched some of your live shows. Is there anything left to talk about?
think
Is there
we could-
stuff that like as you start to get distance from it comes into
We
focus?
could maybe start digging some stuff up, some post-mortem type
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely like you have more time to think about the announcements and how they'll continue to like resonate through the coming months.
I mean, we were just talking about it before the show that there's just so much that comes at you all at once
Yeah.
that you can't possibly process and unpack it all right away.
And it becomes like, it's almost like a tiered system of just like, okay, there are the press conference announcements that are huge big deals because
Right.
it's like hardware or some big business change, and then there's just game announcements,
but there's a
and-
bunch of other stuff in there that is potentially really interesting in its own
Yeah.
right, but gets lost in all the noise.
Yeah, definitely. Like there was a game that Sony showed kind of separately from, they didn't show it in their press conference and this other stuff. It was part of their kind of like a wider reaching initiative to do like the Jackbox thing of having phones as controllers for like a trivia game or board game
it's
style
called like
content.
That's You or something?
There
or-
was That's You, and there's also another one called Hidden Agenda.
Okay.
That's more of like a, you're kind of, it's one of those board games where you lie to each other.
I
about
enjoy
who is-
those.
yeah.
I enjoy those games. And the rare occasions that I can get like more than 3 people to come to my house, those are fun games to play. The Jackbox stuff is great.
Yeah. So like they're doing that stuff, and that didn't find any place really.
Like,
in
it wasn't even on their
press
pre-show.
conference. Yeah, That's You was in the pre-show.
That was, but the hidden
was
agenda
not.
was not.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's like it's the old cliche, right? Of like the worst way to absorb E3 is to go to E3.
Yep.
You know, like keeping some distance from it is the best way to get like the broad.
As someone who went to many E3s during my time as a games journalist, and we were talking before the show, I haven't been to one in maybe 10 years. I now experience it the way everyone else does, which is, you watch the things on YouTube. Most of it's live. You get the best seat in the house, and you don't have to put up with any of and there is a lot bullshit that comes with actually attending E3 in the flesh. Like a lot of it is not fun, let's be honest.
But do you ever miss the bullshit, even
No.
just like a little bit?
Not even, no, honestly, not even a little bit. There's no FOMO at all. Zero FOMO.
The 1 year I didn't go, which was the 1 year I was just doing screened, it felt wrong to me because I realized that I have now carved out this section of my life to which all the rest of my life kind of orbits around, and it's me being in LA this specific week during E3.
Your entire life is subordinated to that one
It
week.
is, and it's a nightmare, but I can't escape it.
This is your life, and it's ending one E3 at a time. What was the view from the couch like? How did the whole thing go down
I mean,
for you?
like I said, it's like we said before the show. It's kind of like when you go to a sporting event. When you go to the event, You have all the atmosphere is great, right? It feels great to be there. But you've probably got shitty seats. You probably don't get a great view of what's actually happening on the field. When you watch it from home, you have the best seats in the house. You don't have to worry about lines or sweaty people or
Paying $10.50 for a hot dog.
all of the things, all of the problems that,
Hey,
that
I get
come
those
with
$5
actually,
ones right outside the venue.
It's
man.
it's hot, it's sweaty, it's you're over it pretty quickly.
It's loud.
Whereas now I just sit back on my couch and YouTube has a whole E3 thing and you just a la carte pull up the videos and watch them at your leisure and decide what you want to look at, and that for me is I'm happy to do it that way for the rest of my life now.
And I think that's the sort of thing that you start to wonder. They don't even call them press conferences anymore. It's briefings. It's presentations. It's Nintendo Spotlight. It's like a very different thing. And so you see these events that are largely just showing a bunch of trailers back to back, and then you start to wonder, like, how long does that need to exist in a world where you can pull up these trailers a la carte and really just kind of sift through the stuff as you see fit.
What was it? It was probably 3 out of the 5 or 6 major press conferences that were basically just like a video playlist.
Yeah, it's like Sean Layden came out, said, "Okay, here's these trailers,"
like
and then we did not see him again until the end.
Like Nintendo, Sony, and Bethesda were all basically just pre-recorded videos.
Right, and
back to
Microsoft
back.
had a lot of long stretches of that stuff.
But Xbox and some of the other kind of like Ubisoft, they still enjoy the whole presentation show. Let's put on a show.
Yeah, they like to get
aspect
their
of it.
devs out there and doing something on the stage.
I think for us as like having, as like covering the shows and watching them and talking over them and that sort of stuff, I think that we end up maybe appreciating that a lot more because like, hey, there's something happening, especially with Ubisoft where it felt very human along the way. And that's fun to see.
Yves Guillemot's just kind of a lovable guy.
Yeah.
Was there a train wreck this year? Because that's always something to look forward to.
There was in the Microsoft press conference, there was a game that they gave a real esports presentation to.
Oh, yeah.
And they had
a shoutcaster.
They had a guy just like, it was just game footage, and then this guy standing there on some pillar in the background just yelling like play-by-play stuff, and you're just like, I don't even like, what is this game? I don't know shit about it. This guy is not selling me on it at all. It just like, that was maybe the closest I would look at and go like, okay, that's like completely ill-conceived.
I would say the influencer that introduced Need for Speed at EA.
Oh sure, yeah, but that's like, it's a guy.
I also think their teleprompter either broke or just wasn't working
that's
right.
a guy stumbling over a teleprompter.
Yeah.
Which,
I have, and I also have to just like put a pin in the moment there where you just said the word influencer in just such a casual way. Like that's just part of the language now.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
we live here now.
Yeah, this is the world we're in. Somebody posted a picture of a big thing that said like influencer sign in. I think it may have been you at the Xbox event. And again, obviously the landscape has changed so much is that anyone who can put up a YouTube channel and get some subscribers.
And they've
these are now
adopted
the new
that as a
vanguard.
title as well. They'll introduce themselves as, "Hi, I'm an influencer for Ubisoft," or whatever.
when you think about like what that really means, it's like it's kind of a dark thing.
I'm a brand ambassador.
Right. Well, I mean, even that has like, that sounds like a thing that sounds like a job.
Yeah,
brand ambassador sounds like
you're.
It's
That sounds like you're officially on the company payroll.
It's
at
interesting
least.
that they didn't try to come up with like some phrase that sounds more innocuous, right? They just called it what it was. You are someone who can influence other people to buy the things that we want them to buy.
Right.
Well, it's the term that marketing people used prior to it being this very public term.
Yes.
We would hear marketing teams here and stuff like that talk about influencers, but before that, they would talk about brand sirens. It's like,
No, you just made that up.
No, dude.
Someone in this building did
That's
10 years
real.
ago.
Like 10 years ago.
But
Yep.
yeah, it was like they were like
Brand sirens?
someone who influences their friends about a certain brand. They'll tell them which video games are the good ones and all that sort of stuff, which websites to visit. They're a brand siren.
Like the sirens of old who used to, lure sailors to their death by singing about Ubisoft products.
Yeah, so at some point that just became, but like the term gamer was kind of the same way too. You really only heard it coming out, and it had like a negative connotation because it was always coming out of some Madden marketing guy going like, "We think the gamers are really going to love this year's game," and you're just like, "Okay, you've never touched a video game."
So it's been interesting for me as someone who grew up in print and towards the latter side of my career as a games journalist, I saw kind of the rise of online, and now obviously it's mostly online. And then what's happened after that is the rise of influencers. So I'm just trying to get like a picture of the landscape. So as far as companies like Xbox are concerned, the journalists have always been there, right, in some form or another, be it print or online, and they've always been important. How big of a picture? How bigger part of the picture are these influencers?
It's
now?
a different thing. So like we kind of, when we fall on the journalist side of thing, we talk to public relations, whereas the influencers talk to marketing.
Okay.
And they're doing brand deals. They're doing produced pieces. They're like, hey, okay, let's sit down and knock this out. It's like they are partnering with a brand, whereas we are not partners with a video game company.
So is that ethically a grayer area?
I think it's only weird if it's not disclosed fully. Like there's no, because I've been thinking about this a lot since the show, and people have been asking me a lot of questions about it, and some people have kind of come to me with like certain ways of thinking about it. It's like, like someone said, like, hey, no one knocks Jimmy Fallon for having the Switch on his show.
Right.
Like, why would this be any different? It's a new form of entertainment that just hasn't been solidified yet. So that's why the lines are a little fuzzy, and the disclosure is a little weird about, is this sponsored content or not sponsored content? And the laws around it are forming, but still formative, and it's not quite there yet. So I think this stuff will be fine eventually, and I think people are out there getting theirs, and I don't have a problem with that. It is just the part where sometimes it seems a little fishy, and sometimes, like, I feel like publishers are in a position where they can take advantage of some of the people that are in that line of influencer line of work.
It definitely feels a little bit more like a Wild West. So I mean, and it is, it's just when journalism was first learning to cover games, we had to figure out how to do this stuff and what was appropriate and what was professional and what isn't. Now it seems like they're back there again. Like if I'm a marketing person and my job is to deal with the influencers, I don't know if I would know quite what to expect. Because again, when you deal with, like, you guys have been doing it for a long time, you're professional, you understand where the lines are drawn, and you can have that conversation with all of that understanding already kind of baked in. If you're dealing with some guy who has become an overnight sensation on his YouTube channel, professionalism, ethic, all of that stuff seems like it's got to follow, but there's no how that happens. There's no system for it.
You see a lot of people that are like, and I've definitely talked to people at publishers who have just been like, we have these people coming in, and then they'll just post the footage next day, even though they signed a thing saying they were going to not post the footage for 2 weeks. Or, you get people that are very Wild West about it because they don't understand the business side of things, and then they don't get invited to any more of that stuff, which is probably fine because they have their fan base, and theoretically they're running a business there, or they don't care about running a business or whatever it is. But
I mean, in terms of ethics, like the games press was always pretty self-policing, right? Like it was kind of on the editorial department at a given publication to maintain the standards.
Yeah, and if your own sales team ever encroached in a way that was not cool, you left,
right?
Because
you fought it as long as you could.
Yeah.
You sound like you speak from experience there, Jeff.
But the point
left is maybe not the word I would use, but some other people certainly left.
Like the point is, like some 22-year-old kid in their bedroom or whatever, like where is the mechanism that is forcing them to identify what the do's and don'ts are? Like they have to just figure that stuff out.
It's a minefield for them, and I think that it's hard for them to know what they should say yes and no to. And
I feel like a lot of them get taken advantage of too. Offered like sort of the unpaid internship equivalent, where it's like, we'll let you come to this event, but we're not going to pay you. But we also expect you to write a very
we'll pay you in
thing.
product.
So that used to happen with like fan sites back in the 90s when we were doing our thing. You would see tiny websites starting up, and they would use that to get into E3, and eventually they might go to a size to where they might get some games in the mail. And or graphics cards is always the one that I go back to, because there was one specific case where like an NVIDIA card came out, and the guy said, "This is not a good card, you shouldn't buy it," and then got NVIDIA like yelling at them like, "I'm never going to send you anything again. I'm going to make sure that all of my PR friends never send you anything again." Like talking about a blacklist that doesn't actually exist to try to scare this person into fixing and changing a review. And that sort of bullying happened a lot with the kind of smaller guys. So I look at this stuff and worry that the same thing might happen there. In some cases where some people might be like, "Oh, I'm kind of building a thing. I'm getting stuff I'm getting games now. Like that's really cool." And they might be afraid to kind of rock the boat on that stuff. But rocking the boat is exactly what those people should be doing. Like I look at the Twitch streaming and YouTube stuff, like they're doing to traditional online games journalism what online games journalism did to print, and kind of making it obsolete. I feel like we're standing in a weird middle ground between those two things with the way we kind of handle this stuff. But I don't have any grand illusions about it, like there's definitely a scenario where we get made obsolete by that sort of stuff, or if we can't adjust fast enough to stay relevant, then we probably deserve to be made obsolete. And all the other websites out there deserve to be made obsolete, the same way that a lot of print magazines went out of business.
Yeah, I mean, as always, the market will decide,
Yeah,
right? The consumers, the audience will decide what they want and who they want to get it from.
All hail the market.
Yes, all hail the almighty dollar.
Glorious corrective mechanism. All right, Gary.
Yes.
I'm going to go around the table here. Favorite thing at E3?
That's, oh man, you put me on the spot.
Okay, we can come back to you.
And yet you think I would have anticipated that and had, off the top of my head, all the Nintendo stuff.
Yeah.
I just generally love where Nintendo's at right now. I was saying to Jeff right before the podcast, I don't know if this is a controversial thing to say, but I feel like Nintendo, this is the best shape they've been in since the SNES. I just feel like they had a weird experience with the Wii and Wii U, and yet I feel like the Wii U was the system they had to build to get to the Switch.
It was definitely the bridge.
It was like the prototype system they needed to, and yet it got released. It was like a prototype that shouldn't have been released.
It was the console for like 3 years.
Yes.
4-year fever dream.
It's like, here's this thing we're thinking about, but really it needs to be this.
Yeah.
You know what I
Like,
mean, though? I don't think they get to the Switch without the Wii U as the
Definitely not.
stepping stone
Yeah.
to kind of
Yeah.
learn what was needed and what wasn't. Like, people are responding to the fact that there's a second screen, but it doesn't need to be a second screen.
Right.
And so they cut off what didn't work and kept what did, and now they have a system that everybody, it seems, universally just loves. It's a huge hit in our house. And Odyssey and everything they've got coming down. I can't remember the last time as well that Nintendo, people have always said like, oh, all you really get with Nintendo are the first party games, and it's few and far between. It seems like they actually have a lot of first party games this time around. ARMS just came out, Splatoon's right behind it, then Odyssey. It's a lot of by far the strongest first party lineup of any platform right now. And just in general, I would say I feel like Nintendo is more vital and more needed and more necessary, and we should appreciate them more at this time than at any other time in the history. They've always been the third option that does the weird thing that no one else has done. But in a time at which PlayStation and Xbox have become just so hard to differentiate between. If someone asks me, should I get an Xbox One or a PlayStation 4? I honestly don't know what to tell them. Flip a coin. There's almost nothing between them.
I just tell people to go where their friends list is.
Yeah, go where your friends list is, and if you've got a particular affinity for like, and this is a very short list, if it's like maybe Halo or Forza on one side or Uncharted, Gran Turismo, whatever. But these lists are getting shorter and shorter.
They
these
are,
first-party
yeah.
exclusives.
Definitely.
It's like, what's the difference between the two
also,
systems?
those two companies are in such a rut right now. Like Sony's about to put out a 5th Uncharted product. Like Microsoft is cranking out Gears and Forza and Halo ad nauseum.
And I feel like they've both been lured into this pixel count dick measuring arms race where it's just about who has the faster processors, who has the better graphics, and that has become the metric. And that's, to me, is like one of the least exciting things about games. It's nice to have better graphics, and 4K is here now, so we want to be able to support that, and that's great. But like, and over here's Nintendo saying, well, here are games you literally cannot and will not get anywhere else in a way that you can play them that is unlike anything else. So the only one that is truly different. I just feel like there's so little daylight between Xbox and PlayStation at this point. There's very little point, certainly in owning both, I would think. And when it comes to deciding which one you want, there's nothing there. Like if someone said to even like the brand, whoever the brand sirens are at Xbox, at PlayStation, why should I buy your system as opposed to the other guy? Like, what do you even say? Like, what is there
they would
left
probably
to say?
run down, they'd run down either a list of specs, or they'd say like, oh, well, Forza's the best driving game out, and yeah, sure, but
have you played Mario Kart?
Yeah, I don't like. Well, I really don't like Mario Kart.
I know,
but I
know.
still agree with you that the Switch is doing something really vital. But my concern is that the Switch third-party stuff, like when you think about the Wii sold ton of software, ton of hardware, all this other stuff. But after the first year or so, third parties couldn't make a dime on that console anymore. And so with the Switch kind of taking off and selling really well, you have this opportunity, theoretically, to get in there and do something good. But then you have to wonder, will the Switch audience support third-party games in a way that will make that a complete ecosystem of games, or is it really just going to be the thing you buy to play Nintendo's games?
I feel like with the Wii and the Wii U, they had two problems, right? One was the install base was not great. On the Wii, it was great, but then they had the other problem, which was developers are saddled with this bizarre control scheme. They have to find a way to reverse it. Remember the Madden for Wii that had like weird controls that like clearly the game didn't want those controls, but they had to shoehorn them
make
in.
It work somehow. Yeah.
At least now with the Switch, it looks like they're going to have a good install base, and also like it's just you play it with a controller the way you play every other game. And so the only challenge is how do we make these games work on a significantly lower system spec.
Yeah, sure.
And the thing they're doing that I think is smart is that they're kind of going with what Sony did at the outset of the PlayStation 4, which is that they're actually building a strong base of like indie games to go in that digital store.
That's the thing I've been so amazed by is it sounds like they've really done a great job of what Sony and Microsoft have done in the past, which is buttering up the indie developers, convincing them to get those games on their platform.
Not only are they getting the games on there, but anecdotally, I know multiple people who have made the Switch like their de facto indie platform.
Totally.
Purely because I can take it with me. Like, why wouldn't I get it on the platform where it can go wherever I go?
I am hella playing, like I'm replaying all of Thumper right now on that. I think I heard somewhere that the Darkest Dungeon devs were like talking about like, at some point maybe like I don't think they said they were definitely doing it, but like that is a game I would totally play on the Switch over anything else.
It's the Vita done right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone anticipated just how compelling that would end up being for people that you can take it. And I've seen so many Instagrams and posts of like people that are just so thrilled that they're playing Zelda on an airplane. Like it feels like the future to them, like the full fat Zelda, not just some 3DS version. Not that there's anything wrong with those, but you know what I mean. It's the same game you play at home. I bumped into Sean Vanneman at LAX the other day, just completely by accident. We started talking about the Switch. He's a huge Switch fan. He said he has not plugged it into the dock once. He just uses it purely as a handheld.
Yeah.
And loves it.
When they had that initial commercial where like the woman takes her Switch onto a roof party and they all start playing it, and we laughed at it at the time, but I've been to at least 2 parties where somebody has brought a Switch.
Were they on rooftops?
Neither were on a rooftop, so I
Okay.
guess it's not 100%
They haven't
there
quite
yet.
made
Were
it,
they
yeah.
as hot as the people in those commercials?
Oh God, no.
Okay.
If they're hanging out with me, they're not on a roof because that's too visible. That's
Yeah.
too outside.
Too much sunlight,
Yeah. But like honestly, I've been to parties where people have done it. I've heard anecdotes and like seen Instagram posts of people actually doing that and being like, haha, it's like that commercial, but it's also actually kind
It's funny.
of
You
fun.
see so many of these. We've all seen them over the years, like the Xbox Connect. The ultimate use again, where you have your young, attractive, ethnically diverse friends come over and play in your crazy living
In a
room that no one can
grotesquely
really
oversized
afford to have.
living room. Yes.
And you're like, and you're sitting there thinking, no, not once in real life will this ever happen. This situation will only ever happen when people are paid to stand in front of cameras and pretend to enjoy themselves. This will never happen once. And maybe with the Kinect that was actually true. I remember that Switch PSA that when the Switch thing when they did, it felt like, somebody made this point, it felt like a PSA about the dangers of video games. People going to parks and social things and then just sitting there playing their video games. Like, put that down and like talk to people. And
Nature, it's right there.
Yes, experience life. And yet,
We're done. We're done talking to people.
and yet, actually, it seems like we are actually seeing, not in a bad way. People are playing the games and having fun. It's like, oh, what's that you've got? Like, it's a conversation starter. It is I still, when I hold it in my hand and play the game, I'm still like, this is kind of crazy that this thing exists. I love Nintendo. And then my other answer is Need for Speed Payback. That's the Need for Speed game I've been wanting them to make for a long time.
Yeah.
I hope, because I still haven't got over the end of Burnout. I'll never get over that.
And there sure were takedowns in that trailer.
There's definitely
And
some
so I feel
burnout
like,
there.
is it Criterion or is it some other team?
So Ghost Games is kind of like there are significant
Wasn't
people
that like a
from
spin-off?
Criterion
Yeah.
in there, I believe.
It's the people that didn't go with Alex Ward.
Yeah, well, there's that team that went off and did 3 Fields, but then there was Criterion. Like Craig Sullivan was running Need for Speed for a while. And
Right.
They had a team at Ghost Games. He just left, but there's still people there, and then there's still a Criterion, and I don't know how many people that is, but they're working on Battlefront 2. They're
So they're like a
they're
support
one of the
studio
studios that is So Criterion isn't probably not a full team that would make a full-sized big game on their own anymore, but because I think a lot of anyone who wanted to keep making driving games went to Ghost Games,
Right.
And now they're the Need for Speed studio.
So as soon as I saw, as you said, the first takedown that I saw, I was like, oh, this is Burnout in all but name, and I'm all for it. And I'm always excited. Ever since Chase HQ, remember Chase HQ
Yeah.
back in the day? I've always been more interested in games driving games where it's more than just about like who can cross the finish line first, where there's stuff to do, like chase down the criminals or escape the cops or whatever it may be. The Hot Pursuit games were always my favorite prior to that.
Yeah.
And maybe this one, it seems like they kind of leaned a little bit too hard into the cinematics, like we want to be a Fast and Furious movie
Right.
that you can
Yeah.
play.
Yeah.
Clearly, if it were not for the Fast and Furious movies, they would not have made this game.
No, the last time they tried to do a storyline like this, they did Need for Speed: The Run.
Oh,
which
God,
had-
yeah.
You were out of the car
Yes.
and doing quick time events, and that was maybe the lowest point for the franchise in the last
It was not good.
5 years, 10 years, whatever it is.
It's like when you've played Need for Speed, haven't you always wanted to get out of the car and not be in a car? No, not really. The cars are pretty much why I bought the game.
I could play Grand Theft Auto, I guess. And
Cars where the
car
speed
there,
is.
but yeah.
Like if y'all want to record some FMV where people are out of cars and I can just watch that, that's fine. But
Yeah.
I don't need more than that.
Yeah, so I hope Payback pulls through because that last one they did 2 years ago was rough.
It had moments.
Yeah, it did have moments, but it was pretty rotten in spots.
Yeah.
So hopefully this one is kind of getting it all back together.
When I think Pacta tweeted something out, I don't know if it turned out to be true, but it said, stay to the end of the EA presentation because there's going to be a big announcement. And my first thought was, Road Rash. They're going to bring back Road Rash.
Finally, yeah.
I just wish they would do that.
They've built up such a wide portfolio of games and studios they have killed that you will never hear from again.
Yeah.
It should be a crime at some point. For whether it's Road Rash or classic Syndicate or Ultima or just like
Or SimCity now.
Mass Effect. Remember they used to make
Oh,
those?
yeah.
I thought you were about to say Magic Carpet.
Yeah, but yeah, too. Yes, of course, Magic Carpet. Why not? Yeah, like with all those Bullfrog
this
games
is
are now
sitting on an incredible
Yeah.
repository.
Dude, yeah.
But it's a portfolio for people who only want to play that old stuff. It's like how do you they did reboot Syndicate and I really liked it, but it was a very different thing at that point.
I don't think it did super well, did it?
No.
If I was the head of EA, I would set up like an exploratory division, just on the cheap, little skunk works, and say, go back into the library.
Right.
Let's look at what we have and figure out what it makes sense to bring back.
Do you think they're always doing market research on all those old properties, like going like, all right, how many people actually know what Road Rash is?
I think a lot of people pitch internally. I've talked to people there who've been like, oh, we were pitching we had Desert Strike up and running, and then we put the Battlefield brand on it because that would be the only way we'd ever get it made. Yeah. Also, it was mobile. Because that's the only way we would ever get it made. So at some point it becomes like the number of hurdles they have to clear to get a thing made. At some point it loses the essence of like, hey, let's remake this classic game because that's not where the business. They did Mirror's Edge. They did that sequel to Mirror's Edge.
Oh, yeah.
Not that
but Mirror's Edge is not exactly going back to like the old days.
But also it's a game that they probably shouldn't have made, but they got inundated enough by fans going like, we want more Mirror's Edge, that they finally did it, and that game was not great.
And I wonder if the reality is a lot of the games that we have fondness for, whether it be Road Rash or I don't know, Skate or Die or any of these games from like back in the day, the market to which they're selling games to now probably have no idea what those titles are.
It'd be reintroducing a thing that people like us would go like, oh, well, we know this franchise. Well, that's what Syndicate was. Is they reintroduced Syndicate as a first-person shooter, and it angered a lot of people. The game was really good on its own. If they had not called it Syndicate, I think it would have been maybe a little bit better received, though it did kind of draw some pretty direct inspiration from those games. But
if you could reach back into the EA archives with your magic wand and have them resurrect something, what would you pick? Is there anything you've got particular fondness for from the old days?
Crusader No Remorse.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Brad, what do you think?
Oh God, man.
I'm going to stick with Road Rash.
Yeah,
because there's not been a good.
There's a spiritual successor to Road Rash that showed up on the PC a while back called Road Revolution or something. But someone put out basically what, for all intents and purposes, is a new Road Rash. It's not. It's okay.
I'm gonna say Magic Carpet because I think with like the modern deformation tech they could come up with for weird terrain shit as you fly around on your Magic Carpet. It could
Put it in VR.
Something like that. Like they could do something amazing with like a first-person God game concept.
A lot of the Molyneux games were way ahead of their time, basically. Where there was a good idea there, the tech was just not there. So maybe go back and do it now when you actually can realize the idea.
Yeah, totally.
I would like to play a new Populace. I would like to see a new Wing Commander.
I think he tried that. I don't think
but,
it went so well.
No, but I mean, like, but
it got Molyneux.
Yes,
basically.
Yeah, but like the original Populace is a better game than that one was.
Sure.
So there's still
VR Wing Commander would be cool.
Yeah.
God, they own that, don't they?
They do.
God, dude,
they own it all.
Jeez, what is that catalog worth?
When you go to EA and you walk through, there's a hallway there where they have like their Hall of History, and you go through all the way back to like Pinball Construction Set and like the very early We See Father generation of EA games. You realize they're sitting on a library probably unrivaled in the business.
Yeah.
And then you juxtapose that against what they've been doing for the last, like, let's say 6 years, where it's like, it's pretty much just the franchises that they have been putting out forever, with occasionally BioWare getting a wild hair up their ass to do something. And then also this, we have one indie game that we fund a year kind of thing.
Right.
And that's it. It's just like, here's more Need for Speed, here's more Madden.
It's a public company.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, at the
But
end
I
of the
think
day,
even
like,
more so than like some other like Ubisoft, like them at E3, they had some surprises. Some of those surprises were based on tech that existed in other franchises.
They're a public company trying to stave off a hostile takeover.
Yeah, there is
so it's
that.
a pretty different thing.
It's just a very different vibe.
Yeah, for sure. But I look at EA as like, they, and whatever. Anthem is a big bet for them in a lot of ways. I mean, but, it is still like, hey, it's theoretically like, here's the next thing from the Mass Effect team. Like, that carries some weight.
Yeah.
But that aside, and it feels like they've been making very safe choices about what to do next. And, and like the business end of things, like their stock's been doing well. They turned it around. Like, they were in the shitter for a good long time.
Yeah.
They pulled it together.
Yeah, like remember the Riccatello years where they was like, we're going to do new stuff like Mirror's Edge and Dead Space, and then they just got punished for it.
Yeah, basically.
years.
So
Where is Riccatello now?
Unity? Didn't he go
yeah,
run Unity?
you're right. Yeah, I think he's at Unity.
So what? So I saw, like I kind of went through YouTube and cherry picked the stuff I wanted to see, but I wasn't like part of the. I didn't get like the macro picture of E3. What were considered like the 2 or 3 biggest things to come out of E3, like things that people are most excited about?
Let's keep going around the table. We'll come up with an answer for that.
I mean, but for me, I actually think I agree with Gary. Like, it is, for me, it's Mario Odyssey, and it's also Mario and Rabbids.
Yeah.
Like,
Now, see,
talk about a thing that should have been good.
Yeah.
I love Mario, but I hate Rabbids, so I don't know what to do about that
the
game.
Rabbids are all right.
Here's the thing, like, at least from the presentation we saw, the Rabid stuff is certainly there. It's certainly present. They are pratfalling and doing wacky things, but like the core of the game is that sort of bizarre, sort of like XCOM-like thing that they built in.
It plays pretty well. They've got some interesting mechanics in there.
The idea of like a more
differentiate it.
accessible XCOM, I think, is really compelling.
And it seems like they have created a good balance between like the tactics and something that people who don't play those kinds of games would be able to figure out.
It's like Smash Bros for XCOM.
Yes. Smashcom.
Yeah, like how many other games will you get to see Mario like sliding into cover?
Right.
And shooting things.
Shooting a gun. Yeah.
Jumping off of Luigi to shoot somebody and then slide behind a brick wall for cover.
Now, you remember, Ubi, of course, have a massive library as well. Remember what a big deal it was when like Snake showed up in Super Smash Brothers? He came out of the cardboard box.
Yeah.
Like, Ubi could drop, like, I don't know, the Assassin's Creed guy in there or something and do something crazy at the last minute.
Just here's Sam Fisher.
Yeah.
He's back.
Yeah.
And
Here's your Sam Fisher
and he's
amiibo.
breaking Mario's neck.
Sniping a Goomba.
Yeah, that would be cool. I think those 2 games really stood out for me. Gosh, I'm trying. I mean, in the hardware news, I mean, the Xbox One X stuff is important.
It's important. I don't know if I'd call it exciting once the price came out.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of the larger thing is I think how people think about E3 as we get to the build up to E3. Probably people should temper their expectations because I think we're just in a different phase of the business right now. Where and you saw it when we had Phil Spencer in and talked to him about kind of the state of the Xbox and seeing the interviews and stuff that Sony gave. Like, it's really not like they are further away from the who won E3 mentality than maybe they ever have been.
They Microsoft or just everybody?
Everyone, I think, and I'm sure that they whatever, it is a competition. I'm sure they know what their sales figures are compared to the other guys and all that sort of stuff. It's not to say that everyone's just holding hands.
Yeah.
But
I wonder if that's also partly because there didn't seem like there was a clear winner.
Well, there's some of that. I mean, like Phil was definitely out there with a lot of kumbaya, like everybody wins when everybody wins type stuff.
And
but
that's the stuff you would say when you're not in the lead.
Yes, the criticism is
sure.
yes, of course. When you're in second place, you're going to say stuff like that.
But also, like all the stuff that Sony said, was basically like we sell really good backwards compatibilities for jerks. It's just like really just kind of tone deaf weird stuff.
But they're also doing that away from the press conference. Like they're not doing the chart thing at the press conference anymore.
Like no one does anymore.
Yeah.
But I think the nature of that stuff has changed, and it's that realization of just like it would be really great if that Xbox came out and it was $400, the same price as the PlayStation Pro, because you would look at it and go like, oh yeah, they're getting aggressive, they're getting serious, let's go. But everyone has a boss, right? And at some point, I'm sure that everyone on the Xbox team would probably love to sell that thing for $8, and you get a free year ice cream and 12 hugs when you buy one.
Who hugs me?
It's you get to choose.
Okay.
Yeah, Any hug you want.
Great.
They've got a bunch of bundles this year.
As was pointed out by many people, no one has ever in history sold a console in volume at that price point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, like, they're in such a weird spot. But you know, even Sony's out there saying that 4 out of 5 PlayStation 4s sold are the base model and not the Pro model.
Right.
So they'll have those models that'll go for $250 and sell to that kind of mainstream audience while also having this premium product in either the PlayStation 4 Pro or the X. And you know, it's a weird thing to happen.
I guess there's nothing. It seemed weird to me. I was confused by the One X. I thought up until almost the last minute that it was just the next generation console, as opposed to this PS4 Pro, the kind of more iterative release. But I guess it kind of makes sense. I mean, why not have, you know, a beefier, more expensive thing for the you know, the 10-15% of people that have more money to spend, have a 4K TV, and are willing to pay for better performance.
It's the thing that I realized is I bought a 4K TV, and there's not a lot to do with it.
No.
And, you know, I have a PlayStation 4 Pro, but not all the games run the way you want. So something that's more powerful than that, where more of the games can run in a something closer to native 4K. They'll still have some games that run and scale and do all that stuff.
So is this, are we moving out of a post next gen world where there's no true next gen console anymore, and it's more just these kind of PC like upgrades?
I think so.
Yeah, it'll depend on how long before the next one. After this.
Yeah, we won't
before
know
we definitively answer that question. But yeah, it could very much be.
They'll
I think
call
we'll know in 3 years, basically.
They'll call something a PlayStation 5, but that will probably be the point where they say also it runs PlayStation 4 games.
Right, they're probably all just going to run on such similar architecture.
I wonder if it's going to become like you have the iPhone 6 and then the 6S and the 7.
I think that's what they're going for now.
Yeah, I could see it going that route. I mean,
and kind of the way Apple says, like,
it.
once you go back more than a couple of phones, it's not going to run the newest stuff.
Yeah, right. They can kind of make that sort of
change. You start muddying the waters like Apple has, where it's like, okay, new game is out. Like, does this run on my 3-gen old phone? Maybe not. Like,
or if it does run, it might not run great.
Yeah.
And,
but you know, with video game consoles, I think you have that sort of built-in mentality with the audience that, like, you know, of course, you know, the newest stuff will only run on the newest hardware. Yeah. I think for them, or for much of the audience, it's much more important that the older stuff also be able to run on that hardware. Like, the idea of the built-in upgrade is already ingrained, more so than like with the phone stuff.
Yeah. So I think we'll know in a few years on that one. But I don't see, you know, whatever. I'm not some big tech guy, but I don't see anything coming along that's going to replace this architecture and be like better for developers, better for the console. You know, unless they go low spec and do ARM stuff or something, which you know that doesn't make much sense for where they're at right now. So with that in mind, as long as things stay that way, then everything will theoretically always be backwards compatible up to a point.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I applaud it. I'm always glad to, you know, be able to play the older games. I think it was interesting though that a lot of the increased premium that the companies now seem to be adding on to backwards compatibility, you can play your OG Xbox games now, and from now on, our model is that you'll always be able to play your old games. That's happening at a time when there seems to be all this data coming out that suggests that people actually aren't really playing back-compatible games that much.
It's been muddy with that stuff. I know, like, Ars Technica had a big article.
They had that whole breakdown.
They rescinded a lot of that.
Oh, they did?
Microsoft kind of came out and said, like, no, that's not accurate. Here's some other stuff. And they walked some of it back, not all of it. It's hard to know. But, like, when they added Black Ops 2 for the 360 to Xbox One backwards compatibility, it re-entered the sales charts. It was, like, the number 10 seller that
Interesting.
month. So there are limited cases where that stuff does well. But yeah, I agree. It's never going to be this huge thing. But also, like, a lot of people bought a lot of games and they probably still have that stuff. And it's great if that stuff can work, because a lot of those games, I mean, better that than to have a dev team spend a bunch of time remastering and releasing HD versions of these games that probably don't deserve them.
And in some cases, making new remastered versions on top of the existing remastered versions that are already out.
Yeah, like that's what the Shadow of the Colossus thing is, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a third version of that, which that's crazy.
And
not that long.
And yet people are still excited about it. But yeah, I kind of, why not just do the next one?
Yeah.
I'm sure people would have been even more excited about Shadow of the Colossus too.
I don't know. Do you want to give Ueda a budget right now after how long Last Guardian took?
Yeah, that's true.
You're taking another 12 years or whatever it was, and you know.
But I mean, I don't know, just
PlayStation 6 game.
I mean, just anecdotally, do people around this table spend much time playing backwards compatible, like older generation games?
I play a lot of old games, not necessarily 1 or 2 generation old games, but I do care about like the preservation aspect of that stuff, where especially with digital purchases, you know, that's one of the things that's been great about Steam is theoretically that stuff is there, but like when they went from Xbox 360 to Xbox One, that was like, well, you may have purchased a bunch of digital games that live in some account profile somewhere and they don't work anymore, and that's frustrating.
See, I would have loved it. I mean, I've had my Xbox account for over 10 years. It goes all the way back to the first Xbox. They know exactly what I've bought and what I own on every platform.
Right.
Yep.
And so when they offer these titles, can they not simply say, "Oh yeah, you already bought this. You can download this
They
one
do.
for free"?
That's exactly what they do.
Oh, they
but,
do that?
but only for the games that they can get the so there's always licensing and all this other stuff. They can't just turn every game on.
Okay,
so they have to
got
pick,
it.
they have to pick and choose, and sometimes the publisher's gone out of business or the music rights have lapsed and they can't bring it back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there was at least one game that I was trawling through their back compatible section in the store recently. Thought, oh, I think I own. I'm pretty sure I own that. Let's get it. But I had to pay for it again.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
seemed unfair.
and if you have the disc, you can stick that in and it still works.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'll have to download a thing, but like they've done the work on that, and that's how the original Xbox games should be working as well when they roll that out. But that's a case where they'll do even fewer of those because even more of the publishers have gone out of business or lost the rights and all that sort of stuff. So
All right, it's time for an email swerve.
Whoa.
Highly unorthodox, but this one of the emails this week is too relevant to this to not just say it now. Joey wrote in from Burlington, Ontario. Hey, I got a message from Microsoft saying Poker Smash was being
Right.
removed from my Xbox One library, but would still be accessible to play on Xbox 360. Is this a licensing issue? It's a really bad precedent to set here, considering that I have played the game more than a few times on my Xbox One, and now I can't anymore. Is there a danger of this happening to other 360 games in the future?
There is always that danger.
yeah, this is the one question I meant to ask when we were interviewing Phil Spencer because this had happened just before that, and yeah, I don't know. As a Poker Smash fan,
Yeah, Poker Smash is right.
That was just I looked last night. I was like, well, I downloaded it already. Maybe it's still sitting there. Like, no, it's just gone.
Well, I mean, this is the reality of the post-ownership age that we live in now, right? All that small print that you don't read explains to you in great detail that you don't own shit.
Yeah.
You are being allowed to experience and consume this game under a limited license that can be revoked at any time.
And they still let you
basically.
play it on the 360, which is where it was
The platform where
originally
you bought it,
released.
I guess.
Right.
So there's that, but I have a hard. I don't even I don't know what business terms got lapsed or that they've screwed up on that game suddenly can't appear there anymore.
Do you have any idea when it was added to the backwards compatibility?
It was
like
one of the early ones.
the early
It was one
games.
of the
So it
early
had been on there
ones.
for like
So-
a year then,
Probably, yeah.
close to.
Is there anything that is like notably licensed in that game that you can think
I
of?
might say
Poker.
Poker. Yeah, they got the poker license.
Yeah.
Lucrative. No, my guess is that the publisher or developer, there's some business on the back end where one of the companies that involved in that game doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
So who do you pay when it's purchased?
And at some point, the rights holders might have changed and something along the way got screwed up.
Exactly. So, it's probably some weird holdup like that. I wouldn't be surprised if it's something that they just like figure out and it comes back, but who can say?
Yeah.
Yes, that was of the few regrets I came out of E3 with not asking specifically about Poker Smash was one of them. Yeah, that's a weird one.
Yeah.
But I don't. I like that they're doing it. I think it's cool. And it expanded my. As someone who doesn't want to leave a 360 hooked up, there's only a handful of games I would really still like to play that's on a 360. Most of those are now on an Xbox One. In my Xbox One library went from like 100 games to like 400 games.
Yeah.
So that's interesting,
neat.
isn't it? Because one of the things that they are pushing with the One X is the architecture makes it even easier for games to be backward compatible. But that doesn't address what we're talking about, which is that there may still be licensing restrictions to games that can or cannot.
It just becomes a business problem at that point. And,
Right.
and like we were talking about this, there's been some stories because everyone wants to see a remake or new No One Lives Forever. Everyone wants to see
why
Nolf
not?
come back.
Yeah.
And there was a story on Kotaku, and like people have tried to dig into this of like who owns the rights to Nolf. And at some point, it might be Activision because the Vivendi stuff, the Vivendi buyout or whatever.
Oh, right.
But like, it's not worth it for them to dig into their files to figure out if they own it or not because it's not an IP that they care enough about to do the research on. So when you have companies coming to them going like, we think you own it, we would like to sub-license it from you so we can reissue the game or do whatever. And they're like, yeah, we might own it. We don't know. We could dig into these files, but who has the time?
Probably not worth it.
Yeah, like go away, whatever. And that's like frustrating because that's stuff that could and should be happening, but just because it's boxes and mountains of paperwork that came over in some acquisition that no one had time to even look at, it just doesn't get done. And we talked to Monolith about that a little bit at E3, and they did not comment on it very much. But same deal. Like they don't even they're probably pretty sure that they don't own it, but who knows? Warner owns it, Activision owns it. We don't even know.
It's interesting that this is why I'm particularly interesting for what Switch is doing with the online services coming up, is that historically their virtual console stuff has always been pretty universal. I don't know if there are like notable omissions, but it seems like they've done a better job of getting.
They would issue the
all
classics.
the old stuff.
I think it was a lot of cases where you would have to purchase the same game per platform, and so like if you owned it on 3DS, you would have to buy it again on the Wii U, and just weird stuff like that.
I will tell you this: when they open, I don't know if this has been announced, but when the Switch Online stuff becomes available, like I bought Super Mario Brothers on the Virtual Console, on the Wii and the Wii U.
Yeah.
I would like to think that when they open the store for the Switch, they will acknowledge the fact that I already own that guy.
Well,
I have bad news for you.
Well, so the thing is, they're not selling those games, right? Like it's going to be
as of
part
now.
of the sort of quote unquote Netflix library style thing where like they will release certain games. As long as you're paying for the online service, you'll just have access to whatever they have up on that marketplace.
And they've said a couple of different things. The most recent thing they said is that you would just gain access to a library, and they only announced like 3 games. Originally, they said like, there'd be like a game of the month, and then at the end of that month, if you want to keep playing that game, you could purchase it and keep playing it.
It sounds like people didn't take to that super.
I think that's a bad way to go. But also, I agree. Like those purchases should have only had to make those purchases once. Like they did a discount if you went from Wii to Wii U on some of those games, I believe.
But why don't you like the Netflix model if you're already paying? I mean,
I do. It was the game of the month thing. People don't really
it was like
very much.
having games rotate out.
Yeah.
And on a monthly basis, because literally, I think they were talking about 2 games a month.
And that very much is the Netflix model, right? Like you enjoy watching a particular thing on Netflix, and you go there one day and it's just gone.
Yeah. But with Netflix, they have thousands of things, whereas this would be more like, we've got 3 games for you this month. And they'll be 3. If you don't like any of those games, tough.
So there's not going to be a situation where they have like a vast arcade of games at any given time.
So that's sounding like that they might be moving to that model. The last thing they announced sounded more like that.
Because I would pay for that.
Totally.
That sounds
of course.
great.
I mean, that's the thing is that will be part, I guess, of the $20 a month that you pay.
$20 a year.
$20 a year.
A year. Yeah, that's right. So
the reality is you have to pay for online play anyway. So you're just going to get that.
Yeah.
So if they do right by that, then I think that's probably the best solution.
Yeah, if they build out that library, that's going to be great.
Yeah, that'll be fantastic. And then Microsoft has the Xbox Game Pass, which is like $10 a month. They have 100 games there, and that's like a Netflix style thing.
I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, if you talk about like who's sitting on the best library, it's Nintendo by far.
Especially if you start doing all the work to get the third-party games in there, totally.
Yeah, I mean, but even without them, like even if you just did first-party only, it's just in terms of like the nostalgia factor and games that everybody remembers, and like my wife loves like Excitebike, loves it.
Yeah.
And so to have that available in a Netflix style, just pick it up and play whenever you want, is fantastic. Like I feel like it's one of the strongest things that Nintendo's going to have going for them once they get that service up and running.
And as a subscription service, I feel good about it as someone who owns 4 other versions of Excitebike. Like I'm not going to buy a 5th.
No, absolutely not.
Because one's on a Famicom disc. It's like like that's crazy. Like I don't want to have to buy those games again, and I won't. I don't think I bought any virtual console games on the Wii U. Like at some point, it's just like, you know what? There are a billion ways to play these games.
I think I bought all the Mega Mans, and that was kind of it.
Sounds like something you would do.
Yeah, I have a sickness.
All right, we need to take our first break. We will be right back to talk about some more E3.
Remember the last time you bought a car? Was it a good experience going to the dealership and haggling with a salesperson? Probably not. Maybe you should learn about Carvana, the nation's leading online car company. You can buy a car online from over 7,000 certified company-owned cars, and then have it delivered to you as soon as the next day. Or you can pick it up at the world's first coin-operated car vending machine. No, for real. A car vending machine. What? Every car comes with a 7-day return policy. You can see if the car fits your life and return it for a refund if it doesn't. It's way better than a 15-minute test drive, right? Carvana doesn't have all those salespeople, so you don't have to pay for them either. That means serious savings on these vehicles. Skip the dealership and buy a car online. Go to Carvana.com/Bombcast to learn more. That's Carvana.com/Bombcast. It's the new way to buy a car.
And Pac, what tickled your fancy last week?
The Mario stuff.
That's just going to be everybody's going to be like Mario, but also this.
Yeah.
I think we can all say straight up, we all like Mario, right?
We all really like Mario.
Yeah.
I had a really fun time with Dragon Ball Fighters. I didn't play it for super long, but
Is it fighters or I say fighters.
Yeah, what are we going with?
Big ass Z.
The Z is attached to
Fighter
the
Z.
I think
in
it's-
the logo. It is one word, capital F, capital Z.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
So
I just
Fighters
call it
Z.
Fighters.
I'm sticking with fighters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just really got to hit that zzz. It's fun to do also, so that's fun. But so like I had a lot of concerns before playing it, but my big one was, is this going to have a healthy audience outside of people who like Arc System games and people who like Dragon Ball?
That was a concern, really? Like Dragon Ball is such a huge franchise.
Dragon Ball has a pretty wide audience.
It is,
but their past games like haven't really
Yeah.
like Xenoverse and,
And
stuff.
like seeing that trailer for the first time, like I can imagine as not being a fighting game guy, being like, that looks like there's a lot going on. Maybe this isn't for me, kind of thing. But they have like macros for a lot of the really cool stuff you want to be doing, like instant transmissions and the like dash, where they get like the light around them and go to hit the other player. So it seemed like it was really easy to pick up. Like I was barely looking at the controls, but having a really fun time playing it.
And I mean, that's what you want to do with those games, is you want to just maximize the amount of chaos someone can enact without having to think about it too
Instant
much.
transmission at all
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
But it also seemed like it had that ceiling. I was watching some videos that they had.
Videos?
Videos.
Okay.
That they had been releasing of like people like producers or whoever playing it,
Yeah.
kind of people who had a little more knowledge of it, and it looked like an Arc System game, but also Marvel at the same time, which is tickles my fancy just right.
And Marvel doesn't. Well, look, so I downloaded that demo.
I'm sorry.
So I've heard the
What the
demo
fucking
is an
fuck?
old version of the game,
Okay.
like a very
Yeah.
old.
That would make
version.
sense.
That sounds like
it has
something
to go
Capcom
through
would do.
cert. It has to be clear, stuff. But like, what the hell, man?
Yeah,
Like,
I haven't even
it
downloaded
looks-
that demo.
It looks terrible.
Some of the people
It does
I-
not play super well. It doesn't feel good. Like it, and they have you fighting against like bots that don't really fight back. But it's man,
Have they said who's doing development on that? Is it just generic,
another
like
someone
Capcom?
intern, yeah.
Capcom,
Because
yeah.
wasn't who did 5?
Oh,
Street Fighter 5?
that Chinese company.
No, Dimps did. Dimps did
did
4,
right?
right.
and then was there another company that
Was
worked
it
on
a
5?
British company? I remember it was overseas.
Yeah,
Yeah, it wasn't Capcom.
right.
I'd heard from some people who played Marvel on the floor that the build there, like whatever they were playing there, seemed better. and
Yeah,
more
I've
fun.
heard people say that
Totally.
like playing it against another person, like the systems are sound, like there's a real game there. But
Yeah.
man, that demo shows none of that. It
Yeah,
is,
which
and,
is a
and the
shame.
story stuff is so bad too.
Yeah.
It just oh man.
Well, finally, I mean, people have been demanding that Street Fighter V get a proper story treatment, so now this is really their chance to show off.
You guys
the,
asked
their
for
chops.
the story chops. What is it? Sigma and
Ultron.
Ultron team up, right? Isn't that
to
the
form
gist
Ultron
of the?
Sigma. I don't know. Like at some point, like it was like every single story bit between the fights was just like, here's 2 more characters, and they're gonna quip for a little bit, and then there's a fight, and then just repeat with different characters.
Rocket
Like, they're-
Raccoon's gonna say
Yeah.
ninjas, right?
Yeah, no, that I don't even think that was in there. I don't know. At some point, I started skipping the story cutscenes because I just wanted to fight a little more.
Yeah.
But like, you don't pick characters; it just like rotates you through
Okay.
characters as part of this story. But none of it felt good either. Like, I don't know. I didn't get a good sense of like what it's doing meaningfully differently than MVC3.
Yeah.
Obviously it's a 2-on-2 game, and they've got another button that is just your stone.
Yes.
So you like, and so I imagine you'll be able to pick the stone.
Yeah, so Jason and I played a little
Yeah.
bit of it, and there was 5 different stones.
Yeah, at that time.
They each have like an active ability that you can tap
Right.
to do. Like this one will pull your opponent towards you, or this one will shoot a projectile,
Yeah.
and they have like a state that you can go, like a
Right.
special
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
state.
So that
you
when
can
it
go
when it
into.
fills up, you can hit like L1 R1 to pop that or whatever, and then yeah. But or you can just hit L1, I think it is, to just do the stone move, which I thought was fun because it means that every single character in that game has to have voice line recorded of them saying "Power Stone."
Oh, yeah.
So I just did
They're
that
keeping
over
track
and
of
over
that.
again.
Infinity.
If you hit the Power Stone button enough, they will make a new Power Stone. That's the secret viral test. So I mashed that button a lot.
Thank you. You're doing your part.
Yeah, I'm doing my part. I'm not even a big Power Stone fan, but I believe in the cause.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
Was that like Dreamcast? I feel
Yeah.
like we're going
Yeah.
way back for that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
They had a collection on like PSP.
PSP.
Right.
That's the only way they've ever re-released it. You can't like
Yeah, it's
download
weird.
it.
It's
UMD, man. Only the UMD could contain the power zone.
That's another story of like Capcom owns some classic stuff that they never do the right thing with.
You want to talk about people who own some really good IPs and don't ever do anything good with them.
Right.
When they do good things with them, it's mostly just to let other people to put them into classic collections primarily.
Yeah. That Bionic Commando game was all
We
right.
don't talk about that.
No, not that one. The good one.
Oh, the good one. Okay.
Yeah.
Those games are fun. But I also like that when you play as Rad Spencer and he shoots his arm out, he does just say, "Get over here" every time.
That's pretty good.
But he says it before it connects. He's pompous about it. Scorpion waits for the spear to hit and then says, "Hey, get over here."
He's
Whereas
missed
like, "Get
enough.
over here!"
It's like Steph Curry turning away from the 3-pointer before it even goes
Exactly.
in. It's like he knows it's going in.
Scorpion has had enough of those like backfire on him to be like, okay, I'm
I'm
really
not
going to wait and make sure.
I'm not going
experience.
I'm not going to stunt on this spear thing until I know it's going in.
Spencer's only had a wife arm for like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. I hope that the wife living in his arm is truly exploited in this story.
That's his level 3 super. She just comes out of the arm and fights alongside of him like the ice climbers.
Man, I wish. God, if only. Then I would feel a lot better about that game as a whole. But yeah, I don't know. That demo seems real bad.
Yeah.
But Dragon Ball Fighters.
Now Dragon Ball has an opportunity.
Yeah.
It really does.
Capcom has just like swung the door wide open for, hey, anybody else making a fighting game? Like, walk on through.
It's like, we already got, Street Fighter already kind of not doing it for a lot of people. So let's follow that up with this that looks pretty rough.
From the fighting game people that I follow on Twitter, there is that like Capcom mainstay of you got like Justin Wong out there being like, no, this Marvel game is going to be fantastic, but it's like 70-30 people saying this Dragon Ball game looks pretty good.
When Dragon Ball shows up at EVO next year, that's going to be a trip.
Yeah,
that is
well,
in the main rotation.
It's a big arc game. I can.
They've been including 2 of those kind of anime style games, so I don't see why not they would have like that and the new Guilty Gear. Probably Rev 2.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Excellent. Alex,
Hi.
how was E3 for you?
It was all right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Just all right?
Yeah, no, it was fun.
What was the most all right thing that you saw?
Jeez.
All rightest thing of the year.
I did a lot of driving at E3. We talked a little bit of that on the night shows. I think both Forza and Gran Turismo 6 look great. They're
Sport. Gran Turismo Sport.
Yes. Gran Turismo Sport. With the Gran Turismo, it was sort of hard to tell because they put you in those big stupid rigs where it's like, the giant chair and the super professional racing wheel. And it's like, no, 9 people worldwide have those things and will ever be able to experience that game that way. But, it looks real nice. I was very fond of that State of Decay 2 demo.
Yes.
I am very excited about that game. I think they are expanding it in ways that I want. Those are the kinds of things that I am very into doing in that kind of game.
Yeah.
And, it's like the simulations in those are just strangely complicated, but like in a way that my addled brain can kind of understand.
But
and
it seems like one of the things they're doing with that game specifically is just being better about showing you what's going on behind the scenes, with the system. So like, hey, you can help make these people survive the zombies if you build them a fire.
The director was there and he fully copped to the fact that the first game, like, your shit could go real bad and you had no idea why. And he was like, we're just trying to communicate to you why things are going bad.
Like when he was walking us through the menus and stuff, like, and he was sort of pointing out all the different stats, I was like, oh, I actually kind of understand all of this.
It's got a clean presentation that the first one didn't have. Just like real nice UI design. It's like, all right, here's how all your rooms are laid out. Here are the things they are generating, and like
here's where this noise, like here's how all this like sort of applies. Here it all made sense, and it felt like a really nice refinement of what that first game was.
Now you can run an efficient zombie farm.
Yeah, I think more Shadow of War. That game looks real good.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah,
I think I'm ready for some.
I thought I saw some people arguing back and forth about that demo.
I don't know. Like, it was a surprisingly meaty demo. Was the thing. Like, there was a lot of stuff you could do in that open world. Like,
did you play it?
Yeah, I did. There were a couple of story missions, and then there were like multiple different like what do you call that? Where the you go fight the rival orc stuff.
The fortress.
Yeah, there's the fortress battle, but then also there are like the little smaller like enclaves where you go.
Oh, so do they just like turn you loose in the open world?
It's not the whole world. It was like a slice of it. But
you got to run around. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, you kind of said, hey, you can go whichever way you want. Do you want to do the story missions, or do you want to just go fuck around with this open world?
Yeah. So
stuff?
when I played it, it was literally just the fortress mission is right here. Do that.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and I didn't think that the gameplay there was great, but also it was hard to get a read on it.
I mean, that was the one thing I didn't do.
Yeah,
I did the story stuff, and I kind of messed around with just some of the orcs in the world, and I don't know. I mean, it plays just as tight as that first game did, you know, and the traversal, at least in that demo, was, as Vinny put it, like just stupid fast. So like getting around was super like satisfying. And the combat still has a really nice feel to it. Yeah, I don't know. Like, you know, the thing that was least interesting to me about Shadow of Mordor was the Lord of the Rings stuff. Like that that didn't really matter to me so much. It was more interesting as like, you know, an orc politics simulator. And
so about like a wraith following you around, and
like some asshole in your brain who just keeps telling you to do stuff.
I'm a ghost man. Let's go kill everybody.
And you know, I think this seems like it's building off that in what felt to me like mostly smart ways. So I'm looking forward to playing that. I don't think I'm gonna give a fuck about any of the lore stuff happening in it, but I enjoyed playing it, and I think I will like this one.
That's how I felt about the last one.
Yeah.
This Lord of the Rings has never really been my thing. So
yeah,
but that game was damn good.
I mean, even people for whom it is their thing were kind of like thought it was super stupid.
I guess they
like
kind of crammed it in a weird spot.
It's an amazing game that you just kind of ignore the story stuff in.
And you know, this is maybe specific to my recent interests, but I'm very excited for Yakuza 6. I think that game looks real good. They finally rebuilt that engine, I guess. You know, I say finally as if like I'm a longtime fan of the series, but like literally Zero is the only one I've played with any amount of time.
You'll get there.
But that's the thing. After like getting halfway through Zero, I bought all the other Yakuza games because they did a republish of a bunch of like the PS2 and early PS3 ones. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna buy all these.
Recently?
Yes, like in the last year.
Weird.
Yeah, so I bought all of them. But 6 looks really nice. They've redone the engine a lot. Like you can, when you go into buildings, there's no more load times or anything, so you're just kind of seamlessly going in and out of ramen shops and, you know, massage parlors and what have you. And
Story of my life.
And you know, the humor of those games is something that I've really started to appreciate. And there was a side mission I did where I had to beat up a social influencer, so that was pretty fun.
Oh, so it's present day.
It's just a guy with a selfie stick going around getting himself into dumb, dangerous situations. Like he goes to the batting cage and like films himself getting shot in the nuts with baseballs.
Okay.
And then he goes into a Yakuza office and like wants to get dangled out of a window by a Yakuza guy, and everyone's just like, no, fuck you. We don't want to mess with you. And then he's like, all right, well, I'm going to post this video of you guys being assholes, so you have to beat him up and get the phone and delete the video.
So you just sold me on that game.
Yeah. Those games are super funny and weird, and this feels like a nice escalation of that. Unfortunately, none of the New Japan wrestlers were in that demo that I played.
But they are
in the game. They are in the.
Yeah.
They will be in the localized US version.
Cool.
They're like a whole gang, I guess. So Toru Yano can, you know, sneak up and low blow you while you're fighting dudes.
Good.
That sounds all right.
Yeah.
Jason,
I'm sure that came out quite
Yeah,
well.
no.
Probably no surprise.
favorite thing?
Yeah, Monster Hunter.
I knew it.
Yeah, but partially because, you know, it was such a big surprise to me. I came into E3 fully expecting, like, you know, the double cross,
Which did not
translation
happen,
to come to Switch or something like that, or, you know, if they were to announce a brand new Monster Hunter, I fully expected it to be on Switch.
Yeah.
Did not expect a big boy console.
Well, first of all, what is Double Cross exactly?
A Double Cross is the sequel to Generations, which is X. And
So it came from 3DS?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So yeah, it's just kind of an enhanced version of Cross or Generations, as it were.
I could feel you vibrating during that demo.
That was huge. Like from the opening moment, you know, I saw that sword and I'm like, that looks extremely Monster Hunter-ish. And it took me like a few, you know, scenes to like be like, yep, this is
That's
happening.
a damn dinosaur. This is happening.
Yep. I'm really excited for that. I mean, partially because, you know, I've been wanting this on, you know, to be able to play with a big boy controller for, I don't know how long, you know, because it's been, you know, relegated to, you know, 3DS handheld stuff for, I don't know, just years. And yeah, they're kind of westernizing it in that it's a little more accessible on that layer. There's damage numbers when you hit a monster. You've got your handler kind of chatting in your ear, telling you, you know, what's going on. If you scroll over items, there's an actual description saying, hey, you can use this for crafting, and, you know, without having to like pull up an app or something like that. Visually, looks great. They had some really cool set piece moments, you know, with some of the bigger monsters. You know, this monster is actually higher on the food chain than this one, so it's going to go after that one. And a little more tactical focus too. Like they were trying to lure one of the big monsters out of a cave first to get it into an open area. So you're
gonna hunt them monsters.
I'm totally gonna hunt them monsters. I'm a little hesitant. I worry that this might be a little divisive in the like Monster Hunter community, in that, you know, it's losing some of its. I'm not saying that it's losing it, but what they presented so far, it did not have like that Monster Hunter goofiness, that
it seemed way less quirky than what you think of Monster Hunter.
It's a strange look for Monster Hunter for sure.
I mean, that guy did pull out a giant meat bone and chomp on it to
gnaw
start
on
it.
But they did not have the chime. You know, there's always like, you know, the musical cue that goes along with it, and it's like a mini game. And they did not play that in the trailer, and that's sticking with me for some reason.
It haunts you.
It really does. And I remember saying at the end of it, I'm like, that's not my Monster Hunter, but maybe it is. So we just saw like the single player demo in a theater. They apparently did have like a multiplayer demo that they were showing off, not playable. But I did not get to go see that because they didn't tell us about it until like 3:00 on Friday. Yeah, super excited. The other game that I'm actually really, really looking forward to is Absolver, and I think I talked about that last year. I got a fresh demo this year, and they've enhanced that combat engine an awful lot.
Nice.
It's a nice looking game.
Yeah, it's a nice looking game. It's got a good vibe to it, I think. I think last year when I saw it, I likened it more to like a Dark Souls / Journey. You know, they've certainly kept like the Journey-ish multiplayer aspect, you know, but it feels more like a 3D fighter / RPG now. You know, obviously in a lot of like 3D brawlers, you know, you've got, you know, like a string, like you keep mashing X or whatever or square, or you can sometimes, you know, go off into Y. But this has stances included in that. So if you do like, you know, 2 jabs, that's like with your right hand, and then you do a low sweep, that'll put you in like a back left position. You've got a whole new string of moves to customize. So all that stuff is completely customizable. There are 3 different classes. This is like a tank class, parry, and, you know, like a wispy, dodgy kind of person. But the way that you get new moves is to learn them from other people, like real people in the game.
Like when they use them on you.
When they use them on you, cool. Yeah, you slowly start to learn their moveset. Yeah. It's there's a lot going on with that I was not expecting.
I gotta get my ass kicked 1,000 times, and then truly I will be the greatest fighter.
But yeah, you can actually
punch.
You can go into like you know towns or hubs and like set up a school, and you can have followers and stuff like that. There's loot, like you know you can equip new armor and stuff, and visually impacts you. And it's in beta right now. That's under NDA, but I can't wait to play more of that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I forgot 2 more that I'm really excited about.
Yes.
Bring them on.
Do I get another go?
Sure.
Yeah.
Just real quick.
Keep going around.
Just keep going until we run out. Just real quick. I'm very excited about PUBG coming to
Yes.
Xbox.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I don't know how many people have played it, but you know, even just in Steam early access, it clearly has the potential, I think, to be absolutely phenomenal. It's one of the most streamed games on Twitch right now, even in its very janky early access state.
Yeah.
I love it. I don't even like shooters anymore, but I feel like it's one of the few like truly original things happening in shooters right now. It's like there's almost no combat, you know, because you rarely even see anyone else.
There's definitely no combat when I'm playing.
No, you're just getting shot.
Yeah.
But this sense of dread that you have from the second you hit the ground, this constant fear of death.
It's terrifying.
I just think I've not experienced anything like that in another game, and I think the Xbox version will obviously open it up to a much wider audience, make it more. It's not the most accessible game. There's a lot of things you've got to figure out. I think the Xbox version will necessarily dilute that down so you can play it on a controller. It's not too complicated.
Yeah.
It's basically a third-person game anyway, so it's not like going from mouse and keyboard to controller will take too much from it.
And I think everyone will be on an even playing field because everyone will be using a controller. So it'll change some things about the way the shooting works, but that's doable and probably could be cool.
I was watching some competitive duos PUBG this weekend.
I've been watching some streams.
They were showing off the spectator stuff that they had.
Right. Cool.
And that shit looks really good.
Right.
The way it sort of zooms around the map and like they put little icons of where everyone is and little like body highlights on everything.
That's what I've wanted.
It's the exact what you want from being able to watch that game.
Yeah, it checks all the boxes. Like it's fun to watch. You know, rather than it's one of the few games I've actually watched extensively on Twitch. I don't usually enjoy watching people other people play games at PUBG. This again, you kind of vicariously feel the sense of dread as that circle starts to
I've
tighten.
seen people describe it as like watching a horror movie.
It
like
really,
it's going to go.
Don't go in there.
Yeah.
Don't go down those stairs. There's
Nope, he's got a
down
scar.
there.
Don't go up there.
So I love that. I think it's a game that deserves a wider audience, and we'll find it through console iteration. And just very briefly, I think the thing that if you can play something now that was at the show, it would be A Way Out.
Yeah,
I think that looks tremendous.
So I saw that, and I didn't get a chance to talk about it on a show.
Yeah,
so I should talk about it.
You should.
I saw it played. They actually let people in the audience play it, but other people got their hands on the controllers. I didn't get to touch it, but they showed like a full scenario in that thing. Must be later in the game because the dudes were already out of prison. They were in a car in a parking lot getting ready to knock off a liquor store.
Nice.
And it seems like there's a lot of different ways the scenarios in that thing can play out because like the whole sequence started with the two players deciding who got they only had one gun, and you had to decide who gets the gun. So you decide sitting in the car like, all right, I'm taking the gun. No, I'm taking the gun, and then you go in there. And it seemed like this is just kind of the guy guiding them through saying, hey, look at that phone over there. Look at the lady in the booth. Like he was basically pointing out all these things that can happen as these things play out. Like, for instance, you can go up to the payphone and yank the cord out because otherwise once you start the robbery, somebody could run up and call 911.
Right.
And that'll make the cops show up way sooner in the sequence of events. There was kind of a complicated scenario where like the guy held up the lady with the gun and she gave over a safe combo and then the other person went in the back to open the safe, but a guy was hiding in there waiting to attack him when he came through. So then you had to decide like, well, do I keep the gun on the lady at the cash register so she can't call the cops, or do I run in there and help the other guy who's getting beaten up right now? Like, it's kind of interesting, like a bunch of decisions.
Did you get the impression there were like multiple ways to solve scenarios?
Maybe. Like, I bet that one still has to play out with a holdup at the cash register. Like, ultimately, that's probably the thing. Oh, like there was also a guy roaming around the store who, in the case of the people playing, they did not take this guy out, so he ran out the front door and just like ran down the street screaming for a cop, basically. And that made the cops show up faster.
So
like,
could you just shoot everyone?
No, because you can't shoot innocent people. Like,
okay,
I don't know how or why they limit that, but the director just straight up said you can't shoot innocent people.
Just like a moral choice.
So yeah, like I don't know if you can just point the gun at people and then not pull the trigger.
I mean, I'd hazard to guess that somewhere earlier in the game they will probably set up those characters as not being like brutal murderers, but just I'm sure there's some reason why we are sympathetic to them breaking out of prison.
Yeah.
I think anyone who played Brothers, which is one of my favorite games of the last few years, if you played Brothers, you can't not be excited about A Way Out because it just feels like the next logical step. It's clear that everything they learned about cooperative play mechanics and all the really interesting puzzles that can be created only when two people collaborate, all of that is now being learned into that game. It just feels like the potential for really original, a really different kind of storytelling, different kind of puzzle solving.
Yeah.
It ticks all the boxes.
It very much. I was definitely getting like a puzzle adventure game vibe from it, way more than an action game. Because like there were just points of interest all around the store that you kind of need to be observant of.
I mean, in some way, it's almost like a Hitman level.
It actually
with
totally,
a little more of a narrative focus.
It totally evoked Hitman a little bit. Yeah.
But you can see, you can see all like the fun kind of arguments that will play out on the sofa at home when someone doesn't do someone screws up and it costs both of them the mission.
Marriages will end.
Yes.
Which is great because I feel like that's going to be represented in the story too. Like just through the course of playing the game, these two characters are going to get mad at each other for messing up things, and putting each other in bad positions.
Now, when you play, I got to say, full credit to EA, right, for putting what seems to be a decent amount of money into a AAA big original. Again, it's slightly easy because the guy was coming off a big. It's like the guy who has a big indie hit film and then gets to go to a studio movie.
He did shop that around. Right. Someone will pick it up.
He did point out in the meeting I was in. He did point out that he and his brother do the mocap for the two main characters. So he did kind of imply like, we're a little bit lean and scrappy. But
I think his brother's an actor.
That might be right. Yeah.
But yeah, like I want to say that. I don't know if this is the game, but I know coming out of Brothers, like he definitely had an idea that he was working on. I imagine is this. So even well before EA got involved, it seemed like they would be on this path.
Now, I know they also said that you can play online. When you're playing online and the other person's not there, you're still in split screen.
Yeah, I asked about that. Okay. It's the exact same framing no matter what because they are presenting the story in a certain cinematic way and they want everybody to see it that way.
Yeah,
although it leads to some weird unintentional hilarity because so I think they showed in the press conference sometimes one player's screen will really widen out.
I really like that presentation.
Yeah, and the other person just kind of has a little sliver. Mm-hmm. There was a cutscene where the guy holding up the lady, like they got the big wide cutscene presentation and they couldn't interact with anything, but the other person was still just running around the store in circles.
That's cool.
So you've got this like dramatic moment playing out, with another perspective on what the other dude is doing, where he's just like doing this or like teabagging or whatever. Like it's
a nervous tick. Kind of stupid.
It's kind of a fun,
I didn't know that they were doing what you just said. That's really interesting because the footage that I'd seen was just split 50-50 down the middle. The ability it's like a directorial choice.
They actually go three-way with it at a point. I saw it in that demo. Yeah, the two playable areas like kind of flattened out and a third like really wide presentation along.
So it's almost like the way you divide up comic book panels to tell a story. That's really cool. Yeah, I'm very excited about that.
Yep, for sure.
A very cool look.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I think Wolfenstein was the most exciting thing.
That was definitely the most exciting trailer that came out.
I am dismayed at the lack of Wolfenstein.
So I went and played some Wolfenstein.
Oh, you did?
over the weekend.
Okay.
Old Wolfenstein.
The
Yeah,
first
yeah,
one.
the first one.
Yeah.
And was reminded that the beginning of that game is rough.
The first level of
Yeah.
that thing is just like kind of super
Yeah.
generic.
Yeah.
Like, am I
I
just playing
bounced off that pretty
a
quick,
generic
and-
World War II game here? What's going
Yeah.
on?
So yeah, it's unfortunate because the second like that sequence
Yeah.
ends, like once you're at like General Deathhead's castle and
Yeah.
it sort of like morphs into the credits, like everything after that is amazing.
From what I remember, like it takes what happens at the end of that first level and how that plays into the story for
Yes.
things to really get going.
And you get that great cred sequence, and then like that whole sequence in the mental hospital in Poland, which eventually leads to the chainsaw moment from those original trailers. All that shit is just so well like paced out and directed. Like it makes you kind of almost forget that early level even happens. It's like I guess at some point they figured like we're doing a World War II game, we probably have to do some sort of like Normandy style storming the beach type sequence, but in reality, it probably would have been better if they just hadn't focused on it so
the
much.
stuff that kind of happens after that, those first few commanders you take down, and like just when you're kind of set loose in that first bunker area. Like the first time I tried playing that game when it first came out, like I stopped at that point and had to like start over like a little bit later and go like, all right,
Once I heard that
everyone's
there was
talking
some,
about how
like,
great this
crazy
game
shit,
is. I
yeah.
need to stick with it, and I was just like, man, this just if the whole game's like this, then all these people are crazy. And then you get to that point, and you're like, okay, actually, this is better than that.
Like I don't have a problem with games like sort of taking their time to establish themselves or whatever. It just feels so disparate from everything else.
But
in
like,
that game.
so that game was on sale for like $10 over the weekend, and I wonder how many people like went like, oh, I've heard so many great, and like dove into it and were like, wait, this is kind of bad.
Yeah,
because that stuff is not good.
not so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, that new one looks very exciting.
Yeah, I like I said last week, I played the first level of that, and it seems like it starts a lot faster, or just kind of gets going.
Good.
With more of a bang on that one. Yeah, all right, that's stuff
That's
we
E3.
like. Stuff we liked at E3.
I'd say there's probably more stuff that we like
Yes,
at E3 than that.
That's
but,
probably
but
a safe bet. But some stuff happened since E3.
What?
Amazingly, did not expect a lot of news to drop.
Is there a new Xbox?
There's totally a new Xbox. I hate to tell you.
These music cues are totally throwing me off, by the way.
I'm just.
Is that like the breaking news
Yes.
theme? Okay.
Yeah, totally. I'm basically stealing a tweet from Austin Walker's Twitter feed verbatim when he said that the best news of E3 dropped the day after E3.
Who fucks? Let's hear it.
IO Interactive.
All right.
Hey, fucking.
Agent 47 gets his. That studio is now fully independent.
Yeah.
They, I guess, bought themselves out. We went into E3 knowing that they were on the chopping block that Square Enix was trying to divest. And it seemed like maybe a grim future for them. But
It was hard to know how that would go, but yeah.
or potentially.
Yeah,
like, we didn't
yeah.
know for sure anything bad was really, they could have ended up at another like benevolent publisher or something. But they have secured their independence.
Yeah.
And retained the rights to the Hitman franchise.
Right. And then now, what is it, like episode 1 of Hitman is free?
Yes,
right
that just
now.
got announced this morning.
Yeah.
Is that I couldn't find. I went through their like AgeGate and stuff and didn't see specifically what's free.
I think it is the first
Is
area,
it
like the
just
first
the
chapter.
training,
or
like
whatever.
Paris or
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
I think.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's
Talk about the showstopper.
That's a lot of video games.
that's pretty generous. Yeah,
yeah.
to just give away. But you should also buy the rest of Hitman.
Yeah.
I like that episodic model.
Yeah,
yeah.
It worked out
super
great.
well.
Yep.
It worked out. I've never liked a Hitman game until this one because of just the way they presented it made a lot more sense for the style of game that they make.
Yeah.
Now, in that announcement, do they make any allusions to what's going on with season 2? Because I know they were
No.
like in the the thrust of developing for that when all this kind of broke. But I don't know if they do they even need a publisher to put that out, especially since it's mostly a digital product.
like there's some vague language in here about like we're now open to opportunities with future collaborators and partners to help strengthen us as a studio and ensure that we produce the best games possible. Blah blah.
Okay.
Stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But that's
they,
it.
They could theoretically self-publish these games digitally, and then because if you think about it, like they didn't put out a physical product until season 1 was done.
Yeah.
Right.
And so there's no reason why they couldn't say like, hey, see, we're going to do season 2 digitally, and then at the end of that, we'll sell you a season 2 plus season 1 retail disc. Then at that point, they just partner with somebody to do that deal and run the discs, and that's that.
Yeah.
I would be curious to know if any other IO specific IPs went with them, or if they just took Hitman. And also, just I assumed that all the tech is with them because they kind of had their own engine and stuff.
Probably.
It would make sense.
The line in this statement from their CEO says, "Crucially, we will keep all of the rights to the Hitman IP,"
Right.
which I assume means they didn't get any of the other stuff.
But also, that's the only one they've done anything with recently. Like, no one's going like, "Will you make a Mini Ninjas sequel?" I mean, I just said it.
Will
but-
they make
Now I'm
Mini
thinking
Ninjas?
about that.
Ninjas.
Yeah, am I right? Like,
They grew up.
Kane and Lynch 3, baby.
Right, yeah, but also that, like Kane and Lynch 3, like would they ever do that, or is that now just going to be? Are they going to be characters in Kingdom Hearts?
Oh,
Man.
Just Lynch.
yeah.
Just Lynch, smart.
He's a
They
big,
give
big
him the Keyblade.
He's a big
Yeah.
Disney fan.
Mario X Rabbids X Lynch.
Lynch is Disney bounding all the time.
That's kind of all there is to say about that. They didn't really give any other indications of what they're doing.
Yeah,
Well, good for them.
Presumably another Hitman season.
yeah, one would hope.
But man, that would be great.
I'm gonna go download that free level.
Yeah.
I haven't played any Hitman.
You should go buy it.
You should check
Play
out
some-
Hitman.
Play some Hitman.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Yes.
That Hitman.
Pretty
Some
good.
might call it the best game released last year.
Some would.
I guess.
Nintendo Switch firmware 3.0 came out. Anybody?
That's right. So this actually is
Hands in the air.
This is kind of cool because it supposedly does fix the
Yeah.
HDMI
yeah.
handshaking problem.
That's good.
Is kind of the main reason. I
Oh, has
brought
there
it
been
up.
a problem with that?
So,
a lot of people
on my
complain about that.
TV, I would be playing like a PlayStation game, and the Switch, when it's in sleep mode, will occasionally like ping out or whatever. So I just get a big pop up over the center of my screen that just says Switch, like as if it's detecting a signal and wants me to switch over to it. But it just pops up the other input.
I've seen people with other types of TVs
That will just
apparently
automatically
literally
switch.
just switch
Yeah.
to the input
Can
without
I
even
just
asking.
say, as cute, this is a pet peeve of mine. As nice as it is these days to be able to just hit the button on the PlayStation controller and it does the HDMI switching for you, the number of times that has happened when I've not want it to happen because of hair trigger controls on like the Apple TV is the worst offender, but the PlayStation controls are also really, really touchy.
Or you got all these consoles with capacitive buttons on the front, and you just like
Yeah.
accidentally brush one when you're
Exactly.
walking by.
I'm
and it
playing.
turns
I'm
out.
playing a game, and suddenly it switches inputs to some other thing
The
because
dog
I
runs up
Yeah.
with
because
its
I
nose and-
nudged
yeah.
something, another
Yeah.
controller that was nearby. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, that TV. I don't want my TV switching inputs automatically. But so this would pop up as an option to be like, hey, if you click in the OK button, it will automatically switch to this input. So that's almost.
I had not heard of that problem, but I'm glad they've fixed it. Is it
Yeah.
do anything else?
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff. Would you like to?
Did this just come out? I mean,
yeah,
as a
like
s-
a day
as a
or-
I got it
Switch-
yesterday, but yeah.
As a
Yeah.
Switch owner, this
I
is
think
relevant to my
I
interest.
think yesterday is when it came out. It's mostly a lot of little housekeeping stuff with like friends list changes and notifications, and
You can,
So you can import your 3DS and Wii U friends
Right.
to your Switch.
Oh,
now.
that's good. Okay.
and there's like changes to volume controls and parental controls. You can make the Wii or the Switch.
Can I make it louder?
grayscale if you want.
Yeah, you can make the parental controls louder.
Sweet.
You can also set the Pro controller to work over the wire.
Yeah, I was going to
instead
mention
of
that
wireless.
because Sony did the same thing with the DualShock 4 like last year, I think.
Yeah.
And like both times people got excited about it. I couldn't figure out why.
It's
It's
just like a
what does
slightly lower latency.
I guess.
I guess but also it disables the Amiibo touch point on
Yeah,
the Pro
yeah,
controller
which
if you're
is-
wired.
yeah,
so.
I'm out.
which is
No.
weird.
I need that.
I don't know if that's something that sticks in the controller, so then that makes it easier to hook up to a PC. But I think people were already hooking a Switch controller up to a PC, so I assume it's a latency thing, but I guess I don't know.
I think that's pretty much it.
Hey, on the-
General
hey, on
system
the
stability. anybody?
Controller note, just real quick. I sat by the 8-bit dough. They make like third-party controllers,
yeah,
the NES
Bluetooth
and
stuff,
yeah,
the-
Bluetooth stuff. Those work with the Switch now. They released a firmware that, lets you sync up those controllers to the Switch. So if you don't want to buy a $70 Pro controller, these are an option.
Cool.
I already did.
Yeah.
I have 4 Pro controllers.
Wow.
There's something wrong with me.
Jeez.
That's a good one. That is
a
a
good
good
controller.
controller. It's a
Yeah.
good controller.
Yeah, so I hear.
Also, speaking of controllers at E3, I
I know where this is going.
I got to see the Duke.
I saw that photo you tweeted.
yeah.
Duke,
It's back.
Did you touch it?
Wait,
No,
the
it's
Duke
in
is
a black
coming back?
Oh, yeah.
There's some I've
Third
heard-
party.
yeah,
Hyperkin,
Hyperkin. They're
Yeah.
making like a modernized, USB.
I was one of the few
Duke.
people that didn't hate it.
Really?
I mean,
Yeah.
I've got these to work with, so
Yeah.
I miss having
These
a
hands.
controller that actually fits me and feels good. The first time I ever played it, I went to like my friend's house for a sleepover, and I picked up the controller, and I felt like just I had unlocked this potential inside of me to enjoy video games at a new level that I had never experienced, and it was gone just
Yeah.
a couple years
in an
later.
instant.
And it's got that cool, like,
you would be in the market for this new.
Yeah,
new
I'd
Duke.
get one for my PC and just enjoy games that way.
there you go.
And it's got 4 shoulder, like they added
Yep,
shoulders
yep.
to modernize that aspect. So that's
Well, what about that hot LCD screen?
Yeah, it's got an LCD screen in it for some weird reason.
But it just shows the Xbox logo or something there, right? Can you change that?
I don't know.
They had it under glass.
Is it going to be like the Dreamcast VMU? Is it going to be like game
Right.
specific?
So the cool thing about that, I was just thinking about this recently, as someone who plays a lot of games built for other controllers on a PC, sometimes you want 6 face buttons because it's hard to play Saturn games on a PC, for example, with an Xbox controller. So the idea of this thing, which has 6 on the face but still has 4 shoulder buttons, that solves 6-button Genesis. That's still good for 6-button fighting games. That's still good for Saturn, which had 2 shoulders and 6 face buttons. It's still good for standard Xbox Dreamcast style stuff. Like
so you're saying it's basically the perfect controller?
It might be the perfect controller.
And I mean, you're a man with hands.
Not with
I
that.
have some meaty paws. It's true. I have 2 hands. And
known hand haver Jeff Gerstmann.
Yeah. Some would say that I have hands. I don't love the original Duke controller. I never did.
Yeah.
It was fine, but as soon as I was in Japan when they launched the Xbox over there, and that was where they first put out the smaller controllers. Those were originally just the S controller.
Yeah, the S, that's right.
Yeah, it was just for Japan originally. I bought one of those and went like, holy shit, this is a way better controller.
Yeah.
And brought one of those home, and then it wasn't long before they were like, hey, we agree. This is a better controller for everyone, so let's do that. But yeah, it's USB.
Yeah, so it doesn't do wireless?
I mean, it might. But I saw the little placard that said, it's going to accept USB.
Great. I would totally at least try one of those out on a PC because the white and black buttons are back.
I'm looking at this photo of it. I almost wish they had just expanded those to proper size face buttons like the other 4.
That would be nice.
Make a good,
but that wouldn't
3x2. Yeah, I guess.
At what point does the soul of the controller leave the body?
I mean, I would rather that someone just took like an Xbox Elite controller and bolted 2 more face buttons onto it, even if they just mapped to the L1, R1 kind of area.
I just wish I could get an Xbox Elite controller that's slightly bigger. That would solve 100% of the issues.
Yeah. Let's see. What else is going on in the world? Project Rap Rabbit.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Did not meet its funding goal.
Yeah, I didn't buy a lot.
Which I was like
$900,000.
Which I was fucking shocked to see, because I thought when you told the rhythm game community, like, hey, the makers of Gitaru Man and fucking Parappa want to team up and make a game, like they would start throwing money at the screen.
It's a lot of time has passed. Yeah. Also, I feel like that Kickstarter was not managed super well.
It was poorly structured. They did not show anything resembling gameplay until late in the cycle.
Like after they'd realized, like, oh, this isn't going our way, we better show something.
And the demo they showed was just like so early, like tech demo-y type stuff that like it really didn't give a good impression of like what they were trying to do with like the rap mechanics in that game. And yeah, just all around, it felt like a Kickstarter from 4 years ago. Like they didn't seem like they learned any lessons.
Like they just heard what Kickstarter was.
Yeah, and the tragedy is that like I think with a better managed Kickstarter and maybe like a little less money up front, like maybe 700 or 800K instead of $1 million, they probably could have maybe rallied enough support to pull it together.
How much did they raise?
Like 200K, maybe.
Yeah, just under, I think.
Yeah, it was pretty far off.
I like both of those games a great deal, and the idea of a new thing from those minds is pretty exciting. But also, again, like a lot of time has passed. Like they brought back Parappa. That didn't exactly light the world on fire when they put out that remaster. People weren't.
I was very disappointed by that remaster.
It was like a reminder. Yeah, it was like, oh man, like a lot of time. Again, a lot of time has passed since those. Games.
I'm telling you, nostalgia ain't what it used to be. Yeah. You got it. Sometimes that stuff is just better left in the past with your memories of it. Because Parappa came back, and I was like, oh yeah, this wasn't really that great, was it?
To be fair,
fond memories of it.
Everything about Parappa except playing it is amazing.
Right.
And even playing
it's just when you get your hands back on it, you're like, oh wait, right.
And sometimes playing it is great. It's just that certain stages, the way that it doesn't really give you like great feedback on whether you're hitting or not is like that's where it becomes a problem.
And Gitaru Man is a more playable game.
Yes.
But even Gitaru Man, I think in this day and age is a little. It's maybe a tough sell. Yeah. So, like, I think that those games have their fans, but I think with people getting their hands on Parappa again and realizing that maybe it's not as great as it used to be, combined with like this Kickstarter being like poorly managed, like I don't know that this is a thing that necessarily needs to happen.
It speaks to what we talked about earlier, is like how much do people really care about these older games these days? What happened to that crowdfunded Shenmue?
That's
What's
still
happening?
Is that
in
still
the
happening?
works.
I've
That's
not heard anything.
End of next year, I think.
I've
is
never
when
not
that's
heard
supposed to
anything
come
about
out.
it since it got.
They're supposedly off working on
They've
it.
been doing some light updates here
Okay.
and there, but like nothing that I think is like too.
They didn't have a presence at
illustrative.
E3 or anything.
No. I think they straight up said we're not really going to show it until it's in a state where we feel like people will get excited about it.
Okay.
So never.
Yeah, probably. But that said, yeah, it is still in the works, and they are saying like late next year.
Okay.
It's a line in this Kickstarter update. You don't make games such as Parappa the Rapper, Gitaru Man, and Os Tatakai Oendon without being optimistic in life. And then they allude to having taken a bunch of meetings at E3. Yeah. So
I bet if they really want to make that game, they will get some funding somewhere.
yeah,
Maybe not at the scale they want.
Yeah, they're kind of talking like maybe it'll still happen if we can get funding, but they flat out say, yeah, we're not going to try to crowdfund this again.
Cool. That's.
I wouldn't want them to. It just doesn't seem like that's going to be the route for them.
Or they end up. If they did, then it would be one of these other deals where it's like Bloodstained or whatever.
The
has
problem
a
is
publisher
once you fail in a crowdfund, how can you possibly take it anywhere else? It's like, well, you've just demonstrated that there's no appetite for it. Why
Yeah,
would we give you money?
Unless they can demonstrate something that is far more impressive than what they showed the first time around. Be like, look, we got it together.
or demonstrate their own that like the failure was like, oh, it's because we're incompetent at crowdfunding.
Right.
If they can do that and then say like, we need your help because you're a trusted business partner. Let's do it. Like maybe they can build that.
Yeah,
case,
if the
but-
argument is we're game developers, not marketers, then maybe I buy that. But I still think that once you put something like that out there and it's that, it's going to get picked up by all the, news sites and blogs. People are going to see it.
Yeah.
And clearly they made a choice not to back it.
Not enough brand sirens.
No.
That's right. We need more influencers.
Need them singing the song.
Turn the sirens on.
Boatfuls of sirens.
Yeah.
Get the word out. This is weird.
Mm-hmm.
Keiji Inafune of Concept has gone and started a new studio with Level 5 called Level 5 Concept. And I'm not sure why or what they're doing.
So
their first
did Level 5 buy Concept?
No,
or is this just a new joint venture?
This is, I got this off of Kotaku, who translated the press release was in Japanese. And they ran the story based on that press release. And their first project is a mobile game.
Okay.
And they described this as a new studio. And yeah,
That's all very confusing.
You're right. This is weird.
This subsidiary is completely owned by Level 5, and then it says Concept is the name of Inafune's earlier company, which launched the Rocky Mighty No. 9, et cetera, et cetera. Like very
Wait, does
distinctly
Concept
say
not exist anymore.
I don't know.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. Like what is going on here? It's
Calling it his earlier company is not a great sign.
Yeah.
Concept did not exactly set the world on fire with anything it attached its name to.
Yeah,
right?
like this story points out that what did they put out? Mighty No. 9, Recore, and then that Red Ash Kickstarter that didn't go.
Right.
So
they also worked on what was that? It was that Souls-ish game with the book on the Vita.
Soul Sacrifice?
Soul
wow,
Sacrifice.
that was
that is a Concept.
yeah.
I think that's one of the only Vita games I have in cartridge form, and I don't know why. I didn't buy it. It just somehow found its way to me.
It manifested.
I think
What's happening with the Vita?
nothing.
There's
Undertale is coming to the Vita and PS4. That was kind of the one Vita announcement you saw out of
So it's in
They
this
didn't
kind of
say the
weird,
word
it's
Vita
in
during
this
the
kind of
press
weird
conference.
limbo where it's not dead, but there's just not much going on either.
Dead.
You will see some indie games. You will see some Japanese games.
A lot of virtual
but,
novels.
There's no first party
Visual
development out of Sony on that thing anymore. It's
So
kinda,
they just kind of letting it
yeah
die.
Yeah, they're kind of they're not going to kill it, but it's not exactly easy to find.
They will let that ecosystem exist for as long as it is worthwhile to let it.
It didn't occur to me until just now, but the Switch has got to be the final nail in the coffin for that.
Pretty much.
And because the Switch is taking even the indie game story that the Vita had was a big part of why that device made sense.
Yeah.
And now if all that same sort of stuff is showing up on the Switch, the Vita at some point becomes we've got some crossplay stuff, but also you're probably going to see some more visual novel type stuff.
But there was no Vita stuff at E3.
No.
not really.
And if you're
Other
a
than,
developer
a
and
couple of announcements.
you have the option to put it on this one platform that both works on TV and handheld, or develop two specific versions that work on one platform or the other, because a lot of Vita versions I think got canceled because they're just some people just couldn't get those games to run well on that platform, and that takes one step out of it.
But we didn't scour the show floor. I'm sure that there were probably 1 or 2 Vita games being demoed somewhere at that show. But, like E3 is not a Vita show. Like, I bet when we get around to the PlayStation experience again, like, you will see a Gio Corsi like figure out on stage.
The word Vita will be mentioned once.
In a hockey-like jersey.
Yeah, with that sky blue Vita.
Like pulling out a Vita and saying, like, by the way, here's 3 new games that are coming to Vita. Like,
there's a van in the parking lot you can go see the
exactly.
new Vita games in.
Yeah.
Is the stock actually getting bad? Like, you can't just go out and buy one anymore?
I mean,
I
are
feel
they
like
still manufacturing them?
I don't know.
I don't know, but I feel like have not been in a Best Buy or anything like that for a while, but I feel like the last few
I
times...
can't remember the last one I saw.
Over the last
on a
few
shelf.
years, you wouldn't see a lot of Vita stock, or like the Vita section got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and maybe they still have a couple of cartridges and a couple of Vitas laying around, but it's not like...
I've been to a couple of GameStops where they don't even have a section anymore.
Right,
It's gone.
it's not happening.
I mean, most of the stuff you would
kind
want
of
to
never
play
happened.
is just on that digital store anyway.
Right, yeah. But yeah, there will be some Vita games announced, I'm sure, this year. But it's not really. I would not call it a going concern.
Is anyone listening? That's the question.
Exactly right.
Vinny is listening. Last thing I've got for news. Did you see this Xbox Avatar trailer they put out?
Yeah.
I think Avatars are coming back.
Hell yeah, they are.
Cool.
Yeah, we talked about this on the Beastcast.
Okay.
I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Very
Yes, that stuff is built in Unity.
Oh.
And they are kind of redoing Avatar stuff.
Okay.
Way more
Wait,
customizable.
I have an Avatar. Last
I
time
mean,
I
they're
looked.
still in there, but
There's-
A, they're like incredibly buried in the UI, and B, I don't think they're really putting out like new stuff.
You
to
rarely,
buy
I mean, you
anymore.
rarely see them. I
Yeah.
mean, my
Yeah.
gamer tag picture is my
Yeah,
avatar.
you can do
Yeah.
stuff like that, but I don't think they're not really pushing.
They
new
don't really
items in the-
surface.
in the store.
I think I had to edit mine on the PC the last time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder if this will also mark a grand return for cosmetic.
Man, I hope
like,
so.
I hope so too.
Can I pay for additional stuff, or will my existing stuff come over? Will my Optimus Prime head?
certainly
Depends on
hope
what's
so.
still licensed.
I hope so.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I never bought any Avatar items, but I loved when they were attached to achievements.
I would get,
Like, I thought
a
that
few
was
free. I would
super-
get like a Mass Effect
Yeah.
T-shirt or something
Yeah.
that I would wear.
like the idea of unlocking cosmetic stuff for your profile by doing cool stuff in games.
But yeah, the
was,
only
like,
time you
something they never
now that you
capitalized
mention it,
on.
the only time you ever really see your avatar is like when you go to the avatar section to do the
You
wardrobe.
have to really seek it out. Whereas on the 360, the friends list is just a giant parade of avatars, and it's ridiculous.
and the Nintendo Mii's actually show up in. It was always fun that like I'm playing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe right now, and it's my little Mii who's driving the car. They actually found ways to put them in the games. That was fun.
Does this mean it's finally time for a 1 versus 100 return?
Yes.
Oh my god!
This will
Why
pave
you
the
gotta
way.
do
So
that?
great.
And I'm telling you again, it's 1 versus 100, but it's battlegrounds. It's just your avatars fighting in battlegrounds. That's the new thing.
That's the new 1v100.
yeah,
That
it's
would
just
be-
your avatars getting brutally murdered over and over again with shotguns.
I would
Howie Mandel's just in the middle of it.
I'm googling Chris Cashman right now.
Yeah.
As janky and as unreliable as that experience was, I enjoyed that immensely.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
great.
It was really amazing. Yeah.
Like the poker, like the Texas Hold'em game they did was pretty solid too.
Yeah,
like
yeah, that was
that's
fun.
That Fire Pro game could get fucked, but most everything else they did from a gameplay experience with the avatars was pretty good.
I think of the avatars as the time when the Xbox was like fun in a really stupid way.
Yeah.
That they've kind of gotten
I
away
wish
from.
they would get back to more experimental stuff like that.
I mean, it
Game
was
room.
just a cavalcade of idiocy, from hero protagonist to like, I've got like the fucking Burger King as my gamer.
Here's a picture
gamer
of
pick.
Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, or like
yeah.
Will Smith from Men in Black, and like the avatars were just
That's right. They did the Expendables one, didn't they? Where like you
Yeah,
wear
I
the
think
Expendables
so.
outfits.
Yeah.
that platform was just so goofy for a good 3-4 years, and it's gotten very businesslike.
Yeah, definitely.
Bring back the goof.
Yeah,
4K goofs.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, 4K avatars, I guess. Yeah, like it seems like they can like ride vehicles now.
Sure.
Like that trailer, there's got an avatar on a motorcycle.
Yeah. At the same time, I don't know that I would want them super on the surface either. Well, I don't know.
Well, I'm like, load up the system, and they're like, "Hey, Jeff, welcome back to the Xbox experience."
I don't want my Windows 10 experience to be nothing but avatars.
yeah.
Like
Okay.
maybe obviously not on the default dashboard, but if you like say drill down to the friends list, it would be cool to flip.
You
through.
just want like a constant like Clippy type character. It looks like you're trying to find a game. Would you like some help with that? Actually, I would, because it's fucking impossible to find games on the Xbox UI now.
yeah.
My avatar and Cortana are dating.
Whoa.
Yeah.
They're an item.
It's scandalous.
It's really serious.
Yeah.
So some headcanon you got there. All right, that's it for news in this post E3 landscape. We're going to take one more break, and then we'll come back and read some emails.
Today's show is brought to you in part by Audible. Audible has the best audiobook performances and unmatched selection and the most exclusive content. If you were listening to Sherlock Holmes right now on Audible, you'd experience things like hair raising on the back of your neck or goosebumps. Because with an Audible mystery performance so powerful, you can feel the suspense anywhere. Start a 30-day trial and your first Audible book is free. Learn more at audible.com/bombcast. That's audible.com/bombcast.
All right, time for E3 mails.
Oh man.
That's bad stuff.
I was
this is
so,
the new
so
song.
bad. That was so bad we got the wrong music.
No, this is the new music.
All right.
This is all according to plan.
Okay.
Believe me.
Let's read some emails.
All right, we'll
There
go
it
back
is.
to the old one. Sorry.
There's your E3 emails.
Bombcast@giantbomb.com is the email address. Matt C. writes in, I'm wondering if E3 had any sort of workforce a la the enforcers at PAX, the Guardians at RTX, or the volunteers at a GDC, or most cons around the country. Does the on-site media and exhibitors at the show get any sort of direct support from the organizers? And if so, who makes up that staff? Are they as visible as some of the aforementioned groups? And have you had any direct experience with any of them? Is that kind of support less necessary given the more industry-facing nature of the show? Or the on-site staff companies bring in? Do you see that changing with the inclusion of the public?
No, there's nothing like that
Yeah.
at E3.
There's on-site security checking
Yeah.
badges at the doors, and that's
Kind
it. But
of.
this year they were
That's-
real lax about it.
Yeah,
Why,
I read something about how the security at E3 this year was very poor.
Yeah, that's secretly why I even included this email. Was
Yeah.
because like that stuff was questionable at the show.
Yeah.
So in
this year.
recent years, they had actually gotten very tight about
Yeah.
it. Like
Yeah.
they would
Yeah.
scan your badge, they would have to look at it. Always had to be turned the right way. Like
Check
it was
IDs
very
as
careful.
well. Yeah.
back in the day, it was porous as hell. Like you
Yeah.
could just go in and out. Like they didn't give a shit. And
Yeah.
a few years ago, they started making sure like everybody had their badge very visible.
this
wanna
year
say
they gave up.
Yeah, I want to say was it last year or the year before where they literally had bag check also?
I believe they did.
maybe they were they were doing UV lights on the badges to
yeah.
make sure
They
they
had
were
some of that this year.
real.
I saw that.
They had the
but-
lights, but they weren't really
yeah.
checking it.
But I would have thought that this year with, kind of selling more tickets and letting more people in, I would have thought that bag check would have been a thing. I would have thought that they would have taken more security precautions.
Yeah.
But also I would have thought that they would have designed the booths with people lining up in mind. But the inside of that show was exactly how it always has been. And that did not seem like a good fit for what they were trying to make that show this year.
Like the entire vibe was very much that this decision was made at the top level, ESA level, and that everyone else was just sort of left to throw their hands up and be like, fuck, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because, it just really didn't seem like they had the capacity to deal with that extra influx of people.
There is definitely a way to do that show and do it well, and have a great experience for people that are coming in and buying tickets, and to have like a passable experience for the people that are there to do business and work the show and all that sort of stuff.
I mean, PAX is a good example of that.
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
they
PAX had to
figured
learn
it
those
out.
lessons too, and they eventually figured it out.
But at this point, like that aspect of E3 seemed like a complete gong show. Like it just didn't make sense.
My favorite thing was going around to the different booths and seeing how the different sorry you can't line up for this game anymore signs. Like each
Right.
booth had their
Line
own.
is capped.
I talked to
Yeah.
like 3 fans of the site came up to me the last couple days who had the paid badge thing. So I was asking them like, "Oh, what do you think of the show?" And like they were not diplomatic about it. Like they were all some level of disappointed or pissed off. Like
It's the impression that I got too.
one guy had a pretty good line. It was like, "Yeah, the show closes at 6 every day, but it's actually over at 1:30 because like if you're not in line for the thing you want to see by then, like you're not seeing it."
So you're maybe seeing 3 games at the show if you're lucky.
Yeah, so another guy I saw at like 1 or 2 in the afternoon. He's like, "Yeah, I've played 1 game today."
So,
Like,
so the thing was, if you went to some of the smaller booths and you wanted to go see some of the stuff that wasn't like Mario or fucking Call of Duty or any of that, like you could get around. Like people were playing Yakuza in the Sega booth. People were playing some of those other smaller games, like in those like the Microsoft booth, some of the indie stuff. But like if it was any of the marquee shit, you would better fucking line up.
I wanted to go see Dragon Ball Fighters and saw the line running around there.
It
And I was like,
wrapped
okay,
around the
like,
whole
forget
thing.
it. Like, I'm not going to see this. I wanted to play Need for Speed because I didn't make it over to Hollywood where EA decided to show up this year.
Oh, you mean EA Play?
EA Play. And so they had that in the Microsoft booth, but like you go down there like, oh, this line is too long. It's like, and like, I don't know. A lot of people have been grousing about it a lot and kind of attacking it from the perspective like, oh, these public, like, no, whatever. Like, the public should be in at this show. The show needs to evolve. It's like the industry is a different place. Like, this has to happen for E3 to remain relevant at all. But the ESA, like, who, you know, the people building the booths, all this other stuff, they need to account for that and try to better accommodate the public being there and to put on a better show for them.
Yeah, it needs to reconfigure itself in such a way that is conducive to that influx of people. Like, that might mean like redoing how the booths are meted out over the two halls. Maybe that means bringing back in, you know, the concourse hall to do more actual game stuff. Or, you know, everyone said Kensha Hall is a parking lot now. Apparently it is actually still there. There is still some part of it is still down there.
I thought we went into
when you walk down there, it is just a parking garage now.
Okay, someone said that there was still like a hall area down there somewhere.
But there are a lot of meeting rooms around that show floor that do get used, and you start to think like, well, maybe everyone needs to be better about like, hey, like if you're going to do business and take meetings and stuff, like don't do it on the show floor.
Yeah.
Maybe
the show floor is just the big public zone.
Yeah, maybe every booth holder also has a meeting room going forward.
Yeah,
I do
that
miss
would be fine.
Kentia Hall.
It was such a beautiful thing.
Like, that was always one of the things that you had to, at some point during E3 week, you had to do it, right? You had to make your trip to Kentia Hall. Yep. And as much as you went in a kind of ironic way, there was always usually at least one thing that you go, holy shit, that's actually kind of cool.
That was where Guitar Hero got discovered.
Is that really?
Yeah,
really?
They were in there, and like I remember Ryan bounding back, being like, "Oh fuck, they've got a guitar game, and it's got more than a feeling in it." And that was how that all started.
Like the Kensha Hall experience was turn your badge around so they don't see who you're with,
so they
don't see that it's a media badge, because then they'll like you'll get
pulled
into
one.
exactly.
Yeah, so like you aren't fucking roped into seeing all the hottest new Techland products.
It's like, oh, check this out, we got garbage cans that have Mario on them.
Yep.
I also
you're in,
and so many hot dogs.
Yeah,
I also had the related experience this year of, because we had exhibitor badges through GameSpot.
Yeah,
we didn't go get media badges, and like showing up for a media appointment and having like the hired help like kind of giving me the side eye, going like, "Are you supposed to be here? Like, are you sure you're media?" That stuff still goes on.
But that hasn't happened. Like I have not gotten a media badge in years, or not used one in years. But there was definitely. This year seemed like there was maybe a return of that a little bit. People want, wait, who are you? Like, no, this is.
We have to get Giant Bomb on those things at some point, though, because this year I was in the Forza appointment. And as I was walking out, one of the Turn 10 people sort of turned to me and was like, "Hey, I just want to introduce myself real quick. You know, I just wanted to, thank you for your coverage of the game." I was like, "Oh yeah, no, Forza's great." I was like, "Yeah, we were really excited to get that E3 award. You know, we were all. I told the team we were all really excited." And I just kind of looked at it. I was like, I know what's happening here. And I just said,
it's not worth explaining.
You're welcome, guys. Good luck on the rest of your show. I didn't want to let him down.
Oh, yeah. I kind of don't. It's never bothered me one way or the other. I think but like, it's one of those things where like, because what is it? Like the booth is officially registered to GameSpot.
Right.
Like all our badges just say GameSpot on them, which is funny if you want to go around and steal stuff. Because then GameSpot gets blamed. But yeah, I don't know.
But I gave that up years ago. So at this point, I think I would be fine with just getting Giant Bomb on there.
I've stopped robbing people at the show at gunpoint.
Going back to what we were talking about earlier, is influencer a category of badge?
No. I think you would get a media badge.
I think it's still media, exhibits only, and then they're like the paid tier, I think.
Yeah, the yellow like holders was all the paid tier people.
I think that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
E3.
Let's see. Question from Lauren. After watching the Anthem reveal, I'm incredibly skeptical that BioWare and EA are making a good move with this game. It very obviously takes its inspiration heavily from Destiny, but it feels like they're way too late to the party. Bungie has already had 2.5 years to learn how to make and manage a game in this genre, and with Anthem's projected launch date of fall 2018, that puts them a year after Destiny 2. It seems like it's going to be a monumental task to sell that to the player base. Thoughts?
That'll be a year after Destiny 2, and you will have some players that want a new full-fledged experience as opposed to whatever the year 2 Destiny 2 content is, like DLC add-ons or whatever.
Is it just BioWare does Destiny?
I don't know.
I don't think it's a one-to-one. I mean, obviously they're taking some games as service inspirations from Destiny, but like
it's group focused and loot based. Like it's got that stuff.
But the core game, like we don't really know exactly how it's going to play or what it feels like yet.
I went into it thinking, because the rumor's been floating around for ages, like, oh, it's like Destiny, and I went into it thinking like, I don't know if I need another Destiny, but then I watched the demo and and I was like, maybe this is actually more like what I wanted Destiny to be in the first place, which is like
was there
a bigger open world, like kind of more exploration focused, like more just to roam around and do.
Was there much sense of narrative? Because that's obviously what BioWare is known for, and also what Destiny has not necessarily been.
The
known
demo
for.
they showed at the conference did not have much of anything.
No, there was like kind of
mostly-
walking around in the bazaar, kind of
The
talking to
market, yeah.
shopkeepers. and
It didn't really
stuff.
give you
Like,
any
there was some of
context for
that.
what was happening, though.
Yeah.
I think
But there's not going to be like a dialogue wheel or that kind of
know.
BioWare.
I bet there would.
I haven't
I wouldn't
said
be surprised
exactly.
if
I mean,
there's
they
like,
brought that to an MMO, right?
Well,
Like the-
it's interesting, right? If you look at BioWare, that you're right. They've done Dragon Age, they've done Mass Effect, they've done Star Wars, but that BioWare, like one thing BioWare is known for, like it could practically be their logo, right? That dialogue wheel.
I wouldn't be surprised to see like an 8 or 10 hour mission driven storyline in there with a dialogue
I
wheel
think
and
it
like
would- I
some
think it would need something
and
like
some
that.
romance options. Like I'm sure that could get shoehorned in there.
yeah, but I think that like,
Romance raids.
yeah, those games can easily coexist.
Yeah.
Like even when we were talking to Luke Smith last year about how they view Destiny, like Bungie doesn't view this as something you're going to play obsessively forever.
Yeah.
You're going to play the content and then go like, okay, well, there are a lot of lulls in Destiny where you're like, okay, I'm done with the content. They'll release more later, and I'll go back to it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't designed to be this thing you necessarily play every single day unless you're into the PvP stuff. So like, you could totally also play Anthem.
Yeah.
Unless they're changing fundamental things about Destiny 2's content drops or whatever, which I don't get the impression they are. Those games can easily exist.
I've got a hot Destiny update. I played the first level of Destiny
Nice.
last night.
How underwhelmed are you?
How'd that go?
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's a shooter.
Yeah. No,
It doesn't kick off super well.
It's a good shooter,
Yeah.
but
they've fixed a lot of things to make it like start better
yeah,
than it did originally.
Yeah, I started
Okay.
a new character 2-3 years after it came out, and
Mhm.
yeah, like they've strung the missions together in a different order and with more bookending on them. That
Okay.
kind of at least gives some context
That's
to why
good.
you're going up and pressing square on things a lot.
I don't know if I told
But
you
it-
this,
you know.
Brad. I'm going to play Destiny 2.
Wow.
I'm going to jump back in.
Whoa.
I'm going to give
Sounds
it
like
another
we got
shot.
a lot of Destiny 2
I think-
players coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote off the first game, and I know it got a lot better. I just never had the inspiration to go back to it. But I feel like I want to give this one an honest shot. I want to see if it catches me this
I
time.
bet there are going to be a lot of people like you
Yeah.
who said, like, fuck this game. I'm not touching any of these expansions. Like, you can't fool me twice. But, like, this is enough of a clean break that
Yeah.
people are going to say, okay, the word of mouth is good.
Totally.
Like, I'll give this another shot.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Good Destiny is really good.
Yeah.
It just turns out
Yes.
that there wasn't enough of it
Yeah.
in that core game when it launched.
Yeah.
So if they get this right, like, they'll be fine. They'll be in good shape.
Yep.
Yeah.
Christopher. If Assassin's Creed Origins comes out this year, it will be the 10th Assassin's Creed game in a decade. That's not counting minor stuff like Liberation and Chronicles. Do you guys still care?
I actually don't think Liberation's that minor. I think that's actually one of the better sort of side ventures. The Chronicle stuff can, bleh.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see what they're saying.
Yeah.
That's still a lot of Assassin's Creed.
So do you care?
I don't know, because I think I'm one of the few people that still has some like strong fondness for that series. I like Syndicate a lot. I like Black Flag a lot. I am ready for them to reinvent that series in a way that excites me. I'm just not sure that what I've seen of Origins yet is that.
Yeah, I think like
What would it take?
2 birds.
I think a reinvention of that combat system from where it is.
I thought they did.
Yeah, but I
Origins
just don't know
is-
that what they reinvented is what I'm looking for. Like, I don't know if loot-driven combat is necessarily what I want out of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like The Witcher 3's combat was probably the worst aspect of that game
Yeah,
for me.
it
And
was
like
functional,
that
but-
game still is kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Like they can get by
I
with
think
okay
it's
combat.
got to be dramatic because I think about it, like I liked Black Flag when it came out, but it didn't do any. It did not make me like back on board with Assassin's Creed. Ultimately, it didn't say like, oh man, now I'm really psyched for Assassin's Creed. So I think it's not just Origins; it's the game after Origins. Like they need to string a couple together and
Yes.
prove that this thing is back. Like a one-off hit is not enough for that franchise anymore.
I think if they manage to pull together like a good narrative for that game and they're able to sort of tie together all the mechanics that they are clearly pulling from other Ubisoft things to create one just gelatinous mass
Yes.
of Ubisoft
Yes.
open worldness.
The Ubisoft game
Yeah.
is forthcoming.
If they are able to do that in a way that is compelling, then sure, I'll I'm willing to be back on board. I don't feel like what I've seen of it yet has really caught me in a way that has me excited.
Does I'm fascinated by this because I'm very much an Assassin's Creed outsider. I've never played any of the games. I'm aware of them. I basically get it, but like for some
There's
reason,
so many of them.
It's never got its hooks. And you know when you can look at it and go, I can see how that's a very good game, but something's just not clicking for me. So I've always been kind of at a remove from it, but I am fascinated by it. Does the choice of time period each time make a big difference for you? Like that, like I personally thought the ancient Egyptian thing looked really cool and was maybe more interesting. Maybe I'm more likely to try that one than, Renaissance Europe or whatever. Sometimes the setting is a big deal.
For me, it's less any individual setting that appeals to me so much as the fact that they are willing to cycle them rapidly. It's like outside of like the Ezio stuff, they didn't dwell on any one period or setting too long. It's like practically every game is a different
the good
period.
thing that it had. That the one thing it has going for it is it gets to reinvent itself to some degree each time.
And there are definitely times when those settings have played a big part in the gameplay, like with Black Flag. The boat stuff became very much the focus of that game, and they actually did the boat stuff well, so it worked. When they tried to turn that over into Rogue, that was a lot less interesting, but I thought they used the setting well in that case. And with Syndicate, it was much more just about like, hey, Victorian London has these much wider spaces, bigger buildings and streets, so like they just kind of trying to build the world around that, and I thought it worked. Otherwise, I feel like the setting is really just, hey, how much do you want to historically murder tourist this time setting? That's really all it is.
Or like, it's been like what does the world look like in terms of, well, how are they going to do big buildings for me to jump off of into a hay bale?
Right.
It's been, does this time period have the thing that Assassin's Creed tended to use? So this is a little bit different because now you can slide down a pyramid.
Right, into a hay bale,
presumably into a hay bale. Now, if you're sliding down, you won't need the hay bale. You'll hit the ground running and stab somebody. Yeah. Right? I mean, that one would hope.
There's got to be a trophy for like sliding down and doing a slide kill into someone off a pyramid.
I'm hoping for like there's just a racing mode online, 4 players sliding down the pyramid. First pyramid one racing. Down gets the kill, but then there's power-ups and you throw banana peels, this whole thing.
I like it.
Yeah.
What are the odds that you blow up the Sphinx's nose?
Pretty high.
I'd say 90%.
Yeah.
Pretty high.
They really love to make your character responsible for really bizarre historical stuff in that series.
Yep. You will cross paths with every, like, Cleopatra has to be in that game.
Yes.
Yeah.
And somehow Karl Marx again. It's weird. I don't know how they did it, but they did it.
Was he the Bangles in this one? Who would have thought?
Was he in?
He was in Syndicate.
Is he really?
Yeah, Karl Marx is one of the historical figures.
So is Charles Dickens.
Yes. And Charles Darwin.
Those games.
At one point, you rescue Charles Darwin from being kidnapped with Florence Nightingale by GTAing a horse-drawn carriage.
That's really stupid.
Who says games can't be educational?
Exactly.
And that's how it all really happened.
Yeah.
So, fine.
It's just a historical document.
It does seem, and again, Peely as an outsider, as an observer of the Assassin's Creed, like you said, 10 years, 10 games plus a bunch of others.
Yeah.
A lot of other franchises would have been well into franchise fatigue by now.
I mean, it kind of was.
Yeah, they got there.
Was it?
Yeah. They took a year off. They got to a point where they finally said, like, all right, look, we know we need to do more.
It's like even with Syndicate being good, it still was like you couldn't quite shake that feeling that like, oh God, I'm doing so much of the same shit I've been doing forever in this series.
Once they broke out of the Assassin's Creed 2 era into I feel like the stuff from 3 onward, they never really hit a good groove. Like there were good games in there.
Yeah. But the pace was very stilted.
It became much more uneven. And they never really found like a good solid core to it after that. Even by the end of the 2 stuff with what was the last one? Revelations.
Yeah.
Like Revelations was not a very good game. And then the stuff like 3 onward, like 3 looked good at the outset, and you're like, oh, you can hop around these trees, and you're just like, well, it just didn't really work out.
It just wasn't
well.
that fun.
I guess it's not an official spin-off, but it seems like it came out of what you just talked about, was popular about Black Flag, that multiplayer.
Skull and Bones.
Yeah. That looked like a lot of fun.
That is the team that I think did the boat stuff.
Yeah, it's the Singapore
Flag,
studio.
So it's definitely like them trying to apply that game For Honor has that same kind of like season-based multiplayer stuff, I think, and this is they announced this as a season-based multiplayer thing, so it's them trying to make boat esports, I guess.
I mean, I'm really glad
You mean B-Sports?
Finally.
at the very least, the 2 cooperative pirate games that came out this year have very different tones to them. Like they're not just carbon copies of each other. They could not be going for more different things.
Sea of Thieves is very different.
Perhaps it's our sports.
Sure.
I'm going to leave
I'm
this podcast right
shoutcasting.
now. God damn it.
Unplugging this microphone.
So glad you could be here. Naveen writes in, I don't know if you asked Phil Spencer this or not. I feel like it may have come up, but I'm not sure what the answer is. With the Xbox One now getting original Xbox backwards compatibility, what do you think the chances are of them reviving Xbox Live in whole or in part for the backwards compatible titles?
Yeah, so they have said that it'll be System Link compatible across all the consoles. So you could take an original Xbox, an Xbox 360 running Halo 2, and an Xbox One running Halo 2, and get them on a LAN
And have a LAN party.
But I did not ask this either. This is the other thing that I wish I would have gotten into about this stuff. I don't think they'll bring up a new old Xbox Live for this. Yeah. I think that System Link games will work, which means if you want to install X-Link Kai on your PC, which will tunnel a LAN across the internet, which you can do with original Xbox games right now. Someone's playing SOCOM 2 through that thing right now. I guarantee it. You could probably do that. But I think, unless they're going to do the work to bring back the online stuff, that also is a little bit limiting. Because I look at it and go like, man, it would be great to play Mech Assault 2 again.
Yeah, like I'm sitting here trying to think, like, what are the games?
Unreal Championship 2.
Okay, sure.
There you go.
You want to
play as Raiden.
Yeah, you want to Raiden torpedo your way across a deathmatch.
But wait, did Crimson Skies not have multiplayer?
I think it did.
But they didn't say specifically whether any of that stuff would be supported.
As part of their briefing, they didn't come out and say yes. Okay. You would think they would do it, but that also sounds like whatever. It's a lot of work to emulate that stuff to begin with. This sounds like an above and beyond.
That's like some actual development
work. A little
work.
too much work.
Yeah.
It's not something they're going to want to do and give away for free, but they can also never get away with charging for it. So
and again, weighing that against how many people are actually going to take advantage of this.
Yeah. So I bet that them getting out there and saying that the games are System Link compatible across generations is them also kind of saying like, so if you want to play them against other people, there you go. Because the work to bring up like a parallel Xbox Live for that doesn't also break the 360. I mean, they shut down original Xbox Live for a reason because they needed the compatibility. It had to happen. So they'd have to bring up something that doesn't fuck over the 360 users the way that it was supposedly going to if they left it up or whatever it was. I don't know. The answer is I don't know. My gut says they are definitely not going to do it because that's a lot of work. Yeah. But
what if they do?
But what if they do? They should. Be cool.
Yeah, that also leads to some weird questions like, people would love to see Halo 2 on that service, I'm sure, but at the same time, they are selling a product with a remastered, compatible version of Halo 2. Like, are they going to...
Yeah.
Are they explicitly going to not make the biggest game on the original Xbox compatible with this stuff because they're also selling it?
I think they would, because it's not like that game is new and they're trying to, make a bunch of money on that. Yeah. So, there's no reason not to.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. That would be like a pretty fucking conspicuous
at this point, in that
lineup.
With that remaster existing, like original Halo 2 becomes something of a curiosity that is interesting to go back to, and if you own the disc, that's cool. But
give me a Togi or give me death.
All right, death it is.
I got something for you.
It's death.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, you win either way. So
that's fair.
Ryan from New Brunswick. In last week's Bombcast, you had mentioned the probability of there being a new F-Zero game in the near future. Personally, I think the art style of Splatoon Cities lends itself nicely to a visual reboot of the series. Do you guys think that we will see a new installment in the F-Zero's franchise on the Switch? And if so, do you think that its existing art style will be used, or will a visual update be in order?
I think when we talked about that, I specifically shouted out that team for having like the ARMS design, character designs, giving a good proof of concept of look at these wacky characters we can do, and the F-Zero roster already being full of weird, wacky, sure, there's 6 palette swaps of Captain Falcon, but there's also, the praying mantis man and the guy with big black horns and
I've completely forgotten who any of the F-Zero characters are other than the 4 from F-Zero.
When was the last F-Zero game?
GameCube.
Yeah.
GX or AX in arcades.
When I think back on F-Zero, I don't even know what the visual style of that series is at this point.
Future.
I don't know. I mean, kind of.
Nintendo cartoon Future is the way I look at it.
Vague,
it doesn't have a coherent look in my mind.
Samurai Goro.
There's the 2 F-Zero courses in Mario Kart 8.
Yes.
And those, those are nice looking things, but they're redos, or at least thematically along the lines of the old games. So I wouldn't say those were dramatically different from, kind of what the existing style of that stuff was.
I feel like with Mario Kart out there and doing really well, they don't really have a lot of great reasons to revisit F-Zero.
I mean, I always felt like that fast racing game that was on Wii U and then eventually became Fast Racing Remix on Switch. I always felt like that was kind of that dev trying to audition to be like, look, we can do this kind of thing. Just give us the
pretty
franchise.
close to F-Zero.
It's crazy how many like faux F-Zeros and faux Wipeouts there are out there right now.
Yeah.
It feels like a ton of people are
and
making
those fast racing games were good. Like that, I feel like that was actually a solid audition.
Yeah. But I don't know. I don't see. I've liked F-Zero games over the years for sure, but I just don't see it being a vital thing that they need to do.
But it's interesting though when you think, Nintendo is pretty good about reliably every generation revisiting all of their cornerstone franchises.
Yeah,
even maybe when they shouldn't.
The one exception to that.
I just don't think that that's a cornerstone franchise anymore.
That's the thing.
You know?
I'd say that and Metroid are the two where they probably don't consider them cornerstones anymore.
They don't consider Metroid a cornerstone?
No, they didn't make a Metroid on. I mean, they made like a kind of a weird one on Wii and then nothing on Wii U.
All right, so rank them. Mario obviously is their top franchise.
Yeah, and I would say Zelda is probably right
Zelda
near
is,
neck and
is
neck.
under that.
Yeah, that's
and
like
then,
1A.
And then what?
Kid Icarus.
There's a big drop off, right?
Urban
Smash.
Champion. Actually, it's
probably Smash.
Pokemon.
I would think
maybe the actual number one.
I would think by sales, Mario Kart might be like number 3.
It's way up there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then you get
But
down.
yeah, those are all.
You drop down a little bit, it gets to like the Kirby stage of things.
Yoshi.
Something like the Mario spin-off games, like the Yoshi stuff.
Yeah, because the Kirby and the Yoshi stuff just keeps ticking along.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And then you go several ticks down, you get to like the, kind of the Rhythm Heaven and the WarioWare type stuff.
Yeah.
like-
I mean, WarioWare, I feel like is top of that list.
I mean, look, hey, I love WarioWare.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
trying to say it's bad or doesn't deserve love, but,
But yeah, it is like it's a side piece.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Where's Donkey Kong fitting in all of this?
somewhere in the middle, I would say. Like those country games, people still like them.
But they haven't made one of those in a good long while.
Yeah,
they did one on the Wii and one on the Wii U.
Yeah. Tropical Freeze is 3DS.
Oh, that's
No,
right.
that was Wii U.
Yeah.
For some reason, the last one I remember, and I bought it, God help me, was the one with the bongos.
Yeah.
Donkey Kong is all right.
Yeah.
It's all right.
I still memorized the Rock Lobster pattern for Donkey Konga on hard. For some reason, I just played that over and over and over again.
The original dive kick controller, Donkey Konga.
Kong Lobster.
I would just say they just announced 2 Metroid games, so
They
I guess
sure did.
anything could happen at this point.
You're right. Yeah. But there's no like Metroid. People have clamored for
Yeah.
it in a very
Yeah.
vocal and public way,
Yeah.
whereas like F-Zero is not.
There's like a low buzz of people
Yeah.
wanting it, but that's kind of been it forever.
I always think about it like, oh, it'd be cool if they did that. But
Yeah.
I don't expect
It's
them
people who
to-
load up a Smash Brothers loading screen and hover over Captain Falcon and go, "Oh yeah,
This guy's from what now?
yeah, I remember these."
This is a Fire Emblem guy.
It feels like a thing they could bring back in a couple of years, especially if the Switch continues to do well. They can just drop that out and be like, yeah, we're doing one. I don't know.
But yeah, they have nothing else like Metroid, but they do have like a very popular driving racing series already.
Yes.
Bo from Copenhagen. The other week, a teaser trailer for something called the Ataribox showed up online.
Yeah.
Atari's CEO confirmed that they are in fact working on a new home console. Since the trailer just shows a hint of wood grain, you'd think it would be another flashback plug-and-play console, but they've already announced the Atari Flashback 8 to launch this September, which
God,
looks
are they
nothing.
up to 8 now? Jesus.
Which looks nothing like the one in the teaser trailer. Now, furthermore, it's been confirmed that it will, quote, incorporate PC technology, so it's not just some half-assed Android emulation box. On Ataribox.com, there is also a couple of email links to Atari, including one for developers, hinting at the fact that this is a platform that you can actually develop for, or at the very least will require you to make unique hooks for ports of your games. What do you guys think this thing will be? Do you think they'll dig out their remaining IPs for some exclusive games? Will the controller be wood grain as well?
I think it'll be a fiasco. I think
whatever they're doing.
It's like, it's crazy.
I saw the teaser for it, and I was racking my brains trying to figure out, like, what on earth can this be that is in any way interesting or viable?
Yeah.
Like, the flashback thing's been done
over
and over.
The flashback they're putting out, this next one that they announced, will have like an SD card slot on it for you to just add games to it. So the thing that you used to have to hack a flashback to do if you wanted to just install 2,600 games on it, like it's going to come out of the box with that.
I
stuff.
wonder if they looked at the NES Classic, which was clearly so far and away different from, so much better and so much more in demand than any of those other cheap retro boxes you can pick up for $40 at Walmart or whatever. I bought like the Genesis one. It was shitty.
Yeah.
But just nostalgia is enough.
And they're doing another one of those that'll also have an SD slot. So you could.
The nostalgia is enough and the price point's low enough that you go, fuck it. and you get it, even though like a week later it's in your closet, like you don't plug it back in again. I'm wondering if they're just try if there's something they can do that makes this like the real shot at like a flashback that isn't just a cheap novelty. There's something
right.
I'm definitely trying to find the reason for it to
parts,
exist.
So it's like, yeah, I mean, but how powerful is that? What is the price point? Like you see people going like, oh man, they're going to enter the console business and compete with the PS4 and Xbox One. Like no, that's
the least likely scenario.
That's no way.
The other problem with it is, unlike Nintendo and Sega and the other retro boxes you can get, Atari pretty much stopped making games just at the edge of like the Pixels for Blobs era of gaming, like when the games were just nothing.
It just became an IP, it became a name, and then Infogrames picked it up, and that's what it is now. It's like a renamed.
It's a shame.
They rebranded all this other stuff.
The Atari name has been dragged through the mud through so many different owners and been so devalued. I think maybe to like the average super casual gamer still goes, oh yeah, of course everyone knows Atari. See the guy wearing the Atari t-shirt, got it a Hot Topic or whatever. But for people that have been who've been around games for a long time, the Atari name is basically, sad to say, meaningless at this point.
Wasn't there a fat ass Atari logo in that Blade Runner 2049?
They licensed it for that. So they've been doing a lot of licensing for merchandise, and so it's like all the T-shirts at Hot Topic and all this other stuff. At one point, they tried to deal a bunch of IP, like they sold Test Drive off.
Right.
And they were looking to do a big auction that seemed like it was going to be like maybe Tempest was up for grabs. They did that Asteroids survival game for PC in early access, put out the game, put out like one update for it, and then ghosted. Like the game got shut down, like the servers are no longer active, they never finished it. Like
they're making that Asteroids movie.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that still happening?
And
3 Tetris movies too.
You need a trilogy really to tell the true story.
Space Tetris.
Well, I mean, each piece is going to get its own movie, hopefully. Like, here's the L Block movie, and then everyone's waiting for the Lion Block movie, but it just doesn't come in time.
Yeah. Well, what you do is you do the classic Tetris universe, right? You do a movie for each of the Tetraminos, and then you team them up.
At the end, it's like there's hints in each one that like, oh, this is going to come together. We're going to have to fight the Puyo Puyo guys.
Puyo Puyo guy comes after the end credits and says, we got to team up.
Yeah. You go to see the L-shaped Tetramino movie, and you go, oh shit, I think I just saw the square in the background there. Yeah. Little Easter egg. You get excited about the square movie. The square shows up
at the end and says, it's not you, it's your kids. We got to go.
That's right.
Yeah. That Pixels did not successfully kill all possible video game movies for the future is one of its many grievous crimes. Yeah. It should have been the end.
Yeah. And then like there was a weird lead, like it's not what it was, but like there was a moment there where it was like, oh, this is like Pixels in Guardians of the Galaxy. I was like, why would they do that? Why would they do that? Like, oh no, don't do anything that's like Pixels. The Ataribox, just I don't know. Like that seems like something.
What's your best guess?
My best guess is that it's a low-powered PC that will have some kind of custom front end on it, some kind of custom little OS. They'll try to sell some games on it. It would be, it could be emulation focused. In a lot of ways too. I just
so like it plugs into an online service and you would download, because I have a hard time believing they would put games out in boxes for this thing.
I mean, with the success of the Ouya a couple of years ago, there's a lot of space.
That was the first thing I thought of, was the Ouya.
And maybe this is like, hey, we're putting out a thing with a set spec and it's a low powered PC. So if you're a dev and you want to get on our store, contact us. It seems like a bad idea. But also, if you own the Atari, like the Atari name right now. What else? What else are
you going to do with it? Yeah.
So
make T-shirts.
Get that money.
Yeah, exactly. And they probably sold enough T-shirts to get enough money together to make this
make
this run box. At it. But it's
get that wood grain going again.
It's hard to imagine this being anything other than just like one step up from those flashback things. 1 or 2 steps up. But who knows? Once you've already accepted that this is maybe a bad idea, why not go all the way?
Well, since we're on this, I saw something about this just this morning. Isn't Sega doing something similar? There's a Sega Forever hashtag going around, and
I feel like there's like Sega hardware rumors every couple of years, and they never quite pan out, or they're always like a little fake. But I guess I don't know.
I've just seen a bunch of tweets that they're trying to get something going virally, and again I don't know what it is, but.
They've got some because they've been re-releasing some of their games, on the PC that came out on console last generation, and kind of updating those, and they're putting out this new Sonic. I could see them probably kicking off some kind of larger effort on mobile to kind of put some of that stuff back out there. That's my guess, is that this ends up being not what you're looking for.
You know how, like, for the longest time, it was just Nintendo and Sega?
Yeah.
And then Sony came along and changed it, and then Sega went away. And now for a good long time, it's been Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft. Is there another... Can you possibly imagine, like, another seismic realignment? Or is it just going to be this way forever?
Anything's possible. I mean, there was talk for a while that Microsoft was looking to sell the Xbox line off because it
I heard that Satya Nadella is not a fan of it at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just has no time for it.
So if that's the case, then once that changes hands, there's opportunity there. Whether it's whoever buys that brand or whoever sees that brand in transition and goes, oh, we can strike now. But who's got the money to do the R&D? Who's got the money to actually put out a box that's capable, do all the developer relations to bring all that stuff together? That's the
Amazon.
The obvious. Well,
there's a handful of
Apple
companies.
is the obvious answer,
Apple, Amazon,
but they don't give
Google,
a shit.
That's
Yeah.
it. I guess.
But would they?
But they're not consumer electronics companies like they.
Yeah.
In the like
Tencent,
box under your
Tencent has
TV
their own
sense.
box in China, so yeah, maybe. But if you were Google, would you launch a video game console, or would you just say we're going to double down on our phone efforts, and the Fire Sticks are going to get a little bit better, so you can play some slightly better games there, and go for a wider casual thing?
I'm sure, much to video game companies' dismay, the game industry is saddled with this legacy of price expectations that don't really align with the business anymore, right? They don't want boxes that are over $400, but they want a powerful PC in there.
Right.
They want to be paying adjusted for inflation, less money now than they were in the 80s for games.
That's why I think
why would Apple or Google want to get into a business like that?
If there's going to be a new thing, it has to be more like the Switch or something like that, where it's not just another console,
or it's standalone VR, or it's hey, we got this AR thing.
It's got to be weird. It's got to have something that other consoles.
We're going to go to the Tiger R Zone, but for real this time.
Oh my God, the R Zone.
Yeah.
And I would make the argument that only Nintendo could have made the Switch, not in that only they could have thought of it, but just that it's their brand name that makes it viable.
Yes.
Right.
There's Mario on it. There's Zelda. You can play Zelda on the go is a lot better of a selling
there
point.
There've been plenty of gaming tablets, the
Yeah.
Shield and all this other stuff, and you can play your Android stuff on it. But
I mean,
when you bring that different class, that
Yeah.
different style of game development.
there's even been shitty attempts at bolting controls on the sides of an iPad, and
Totally.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Glenn from Calgary. This is kind of a relevant email now. I have two kinds of podcasts on my phone: video games and investing. I don't know why it took me so long to put this together, but I started looking up some video game stocks, and wowza, some of these companies have made crazy money in the last year. What would be your top 5 video game companies to invest in for the upcoming year?
You don't want investment advice from us.
I have no idea, man.
Yeah.
I heard that Ubisoft stock price was hit a new high after their press conference. So
Interesting.
I don't know how much Vivendi is still a threat to them, but I guess it seems like they're getting the share price up, which might fend them off.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I have no idea.
I don't want to know.
Nintendo, Sony,
I hear they're
Microsoft.
Yeah, those guys.
Atari.
Yeah, Atari. They're on the rise. They got a lot of new announcements in the pipeline.
Not Atari.
Yeah.
Do not invest in Atari.
Please no.
No, this is.
Please do not take any
so-
advice from us on investing.
So out of our purview.
IO.
Go tweet at Michael Pachter.
Yeah.
He can help you out.
He's the guy, for sure.
Does he have a newsletter?
Possibly.
Yeah, and he'll probably tell you to put money in Netflix.
He's got a zine.
Yeah.
That he photocopies and
I
sends-
would
sends
love
around.
to see a punk zine out of Michael Pachter.
Pachter Punk Zine, yeah.
Pachter zine. All right, final email from Ace. I was talking with some former EA devs recently and learned this fun fact. Early on in the development of your favorite Need for Speed The Run, when they were adapting the Frostbite engine to work for a racing game, Frostbite would crash if the player entities didn't have guns associated with them. So the simple solution, to give each car a gun.
Yeah, like
that's
some
it.
deep dark back end,
yes.
has gun.
Yes, sure. Presumably, maybe buried in that model somewhere.
So is there just
there is a gun model
or
or
just
something.
an invisible,
or
is the
probably
gun
like
just driving the car?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder
You
if
are
that
the
says
gun.
something about the cultural direction of video games, that they've built engines that don't no longer understand things that don't have guns.
It's like, what do you mean it doesn't have a gun?
Machine gunless.
I mean, Frostbite was built for Battlefield originally, and it shows in a lot of non-Battlefield games that thing is, that was a lot of people, or that it seems like some of the BioWare folks were laying some of the Mass Effect Andromeda problems at Frostbite's feet, among other things. But
also, we've weirdly been talking about Need for Speed The Run an awful lot lately for some reason.
Well, that's because they're,
there's a new one coming.
The game they're making,
like, and they're going cinematic with it.
That's the dark concern about Payback is that it makes you talk about The Run a lot, and that's probably not a good place to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, that Frostbite engine, huh? Weird times, T-poses, all this other fun stuff.
It sure looks nice.
When used,
when used appropriately.
When used appropriately, it's an amazing engine.
Damn good looking games.
I wouldn't want to have to shoehorn anything else onto it. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right, bombcast@giantbomb.com. Those are the emails for this week. Thanks for being here.
How many emails do you get a week?
6 or 7?
Yeah, that was all of them.
That's
probably like 200-300
wow.
a week. Something
Do you get any that are just like batshit crazy?
Here and there.
A guy emailed claiming to be tripping on mushrooms this week.
Oh, really?
Sent like 3 one-sentence emails each that were kind of all hard to decipher.
My guess is it probably who would claim that? And then I guess he probably actually was.
It was very plausible based on the way they were written. And then like a few hours later, another email had come in saying like, please disregard. I ate mushrooms.
The email comes in cycles. Like the emails we take inform the emails we get.
That's a lot of it.
It will go through cycles where like there was a 6-month period where we're getting a lot of emails about like bad bathrooms at businesses, like specifically at game dev studios. Like, who was the LucasArts shit bandit that was pooping on the floor? Like, we'll find him someday, And so once you take one of those, you get 20 more.
Yep.
We had a lot of people writing in saying that other parts of the world sucked.
Yes. We definitely still get some beef, some geographical beef
writing in about how Cleveland is the worst place on earth, or Australia, or both.
Yep.
Yeah, so they go in cycles for sure.
Yeah, a lot of E3 stuff this week because that's obviously what's in the front of the mind for everybody. But yeah, thanks for swinging by, Gary.
Thanks for having me. Like I said, I'm always happy to get out of the house and interact with real human beings.
Speak to people.
Yeah, and talk about games.
Yeah. You got anything you want to plug? What's up with you lately?
No, not really. I'm working away on a bunch of stuff that I can't talk about. Let me see, what did I do? I have an episode of the upcoming season of Star Wars Rebels. I wrote one of those. It's probably one of the last Star Wars related things from me, and I did just wrote a story for it's actually really cool. I don't know if you saw this. They have a book coming out later this year called From a Certain Point of View, and it's to celebrate 40 years of Star Wars. And so it's 40 stories from 40 authors, and each one's from the point of view of like a character that you wouldn't usually have thought of in that context. So like, I don't know if they're doing this. I assume they are like one of the patrons in the Mos Eisley Cantina. Like, what's their deal? And you hear a story from their point of view. And I did one, and a bunch of other authors have done. It's fun to kind of pick out.
I saw like Griffin McElroy is doing one, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of well-known authors, a lot of authors that are well-known for kind of writing in the Star Wars universe have all chipped in. And it's all, I believe that all the proceeds are going to the Force for Change and like the charities that Lucasfilm supports. So that's coming out later this year.
Cool. Right on.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Cool.
Alex.
Hi.
Thank you for being here as well.
No problem. I'm here all week.
Yes. We'll find some other way.
Be sure to tip your podcaster.
We'll find some other way to take advantage of you.
Yes.
Before you leave town.
What?
Moving on.
You don't know what kind of work you got yourself into.
The post E3 lull.
That's right. Call it. We told you things were going to change after E3
It
was
gets real
over.
sexy around here.
That's right. All right. Well, that's going to do it then. Thanks for listening. This has been the Giant Bombcast. We'll see you back here next week.
Forget the dealership. Forget about it. Carvana can help. With Carvana, you can browse, buy, trade in, and finance your next vehicle online from the comfort of your home. Choose as soon as next day delivery or pick up your vehicle from the world's first coin-operated car vending machine. And wave bye-bye to buyer's remorse with their 7-day money-back guarantee. Go to Carvana.com/bombcast, that's BOMBCAST, for the new way to buy a car.